as we welcome the Republican nominee, President Trump, and the Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden.
Everybody clap. Woo. What a rousing round of applause that we got.
How you doing, man? How are you?
He goes, how you doing, man?
Right.
What up, dog? I'm about to fucking own you, but not really, because I can't form a speech. Can't form a sentence.
Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight, why are you right in the argument you make and your opponent wrong? And where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court? President Trump, in this first segment, you go first, 2 minutes.
So before we get into this, I'd just like to say that the reason Biden is claiming it's not an abuse of power, right? You know, the Republicans, of course, want to get conservative judges in. Democrats want to get progressive judges in. Of course, they want their own people. I would say the only saving grace that a Biden has as far as like, hey, you should hold a seat is the fact that Lindsey Graham brought up the fact that you should save the seat in last presidency. That's it.
Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences.
Sorry, elections have consequences. Why do you say consequences? Like it's like, you know, guys, I won the election, so you knew it was going to be bad. Just say the elections. That's the result of an election.
We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way, In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people.
I doubt that, but she doesn't seem bad.
And other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time, even if we did it after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We have a professor at Notre Dame, highly respected by all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they'd try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up.
I don't know about the faster part, but he's right.
They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped. And probably that would happen in reverse also. Definitely would happen in reverse.
Probably,
so we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
President,
he's got a good point.
Trump, thank you. Same question to you, Vice President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this, and looking forward to this, Mr. President.
Thank you, Joe.
The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is, and that say occurs when they vote for United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States.
Yeah, so you're kind of just strengthening Trump's argument as to why he should be the one that's able to choose the nominee. I mean, it's bullshit because Trump was able to... The Republicans really fucking did a number on the Democrats when they forcefully held a ton of positions under Obama's administration. So is it right? No, but like, you know... You can make the argument that people voted for these particular, you know, congressmen and women, and you're just strengthening Trump's argument.
They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already. The election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is, because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here is the president's made it clear.
It's a calm before the storm.
He wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that. He ran on that, and he's been governing on that. He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip 20 million people from having insurance, health insurance now, if it goes into court. And the justice, and I have nothing, I'm not opposed to the justice. She seems like a very fine person. But she's written before she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing that's on the court,
well, listen, there are parts of the Affordable Care Act that you might be able to make that argument, I guess. If they're specifically talking about the individual mandate, maybe. I don't really know that I agree. But the individual mandate is, you know, I think is kind of a good thing, generally speaking.
if it's struck down, what happens?
Only because when more people, you know, invest into the system, it will generally lower costs across the board. Of course, since we subsidize private insurance, that doesn't necessarily happen. That's the way it's supposed to work. That's why I lean more towards the idea of like public insurance choice with a private, well, you know, a public option and a private option coexisting.
Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets. And that ended when we, in fact, passed the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well. Those pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies are going to love this. And so it's just not appropriate.
It's bizarre because like the estimate for the number of people with pre-existing conditions in the United States, the non-elderly, is anywhere from like I think like 50 to 130 million. It's bizarre how wide that number really is. I'm not saying that he's wrong in his assertion, averaging it. It's just weird that we can't come to like a, you know,
to do this before this election. If he wins the election and the Senate is Democrat or Republican, then he goes forward. If not, we should wait until February.
All right. There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions. As far as a say is concerned, the people who already had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years.
He's right.
So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
during
election.
that period of time.
What did he just say?
So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
during
election.
that.
He's elected to the next. Biden. Your words are great.
Period of time. During that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years. And the 100 million people, Joe, the 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got it.
You know, it seems like I watched this yesterday, but not to be, it seems like Biden started interrupting. All right. I didn't really catch up on it because Trump does a lot more interrupting, but Biden seems to have started interrupting.
That number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very happy with.
That's simply not true.
Well, you're certainly going to socialist. You're going to socialist.
So the problem with that is that, like, even now, Biden refuses to back Medicare for all. He keeps talking about the expansion of Obamacare. Now, me personally, I'm for Medicare for all, an option that maintains private insurance. But, like, in Biden's defense, he never said he was going to completely abolish the private healthcare system. I don't think that he would.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare.
Yeah, see.
And we increase it. We do not.
I don't really agree with that because Obamacare, subsidizes private insurance companies. I'm not, it's more expensive. My thing is I think that a lot of people will be like, hey, listen, I'm okay with poor people having insurance, right? But it doesn't have to be perfect, okay? Give them insurance. Come up with a solid base, like a floor level of what is acceptable, of like, hey, you should be able to go to the doctor, go to the emergency room, not get screwed. You don't have to have the best doctors, but you can live comfortably, right? Streamline it so that that's like one choice because it's cheaper for the American taxpayer, right? Potentially allow middle-class Americans to join onto that based on their income. And there we go. and then allow private insurance to pick up the rest. Listen, one of two things is going to happen. Either private insurance is going to adjust to the system, and they're going to provide a better option, or they won't, and they'll die, right? Kind of a win-win. Just saying.
Not wipe any, and one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do.
Sure.
They will under my proposal.
It's not what you've said,
But
and it's not what your party has said.
That is simply
Your party
a lie.
It is what he
doesn't say. Your
said.
party
That is
wants to
simple.
go socialist medicine.
My party is
and
me.
socialist
Right
healthcare.
now,
I gotta say, that was a fucking Chad moment for Biden. He's like, my party is me right now. I'll give him some Chad points for that, guys. You gotta give him some points for that one.
I am
And
the
they're going to
Democratic
dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the
That also might be true. They might dominate Joe Biden. It's kind of a washover.
Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
Not according
Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act? And
Joe, you've had
pre-existing
308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me.
So that's not actually true. I did look into some fact checking after the debate, so I have like a reasonable amount of information. That claim, so it was a disaster, right, under Obama and Biden, sure, but like those people didn't die. They just processed their like death certificates late. It was very inefficient, but he didn't like let a bunch of people die. So, I don't know why Biden wouldn't defend himself here.
I'm happy to talk about this.
And if you were here,
Look,
it
here's
wouldn't
the
be
deal.
200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You
Late
didn't
on
want
the
me to
draw.
ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban
All right, gentlemen,
Europe, which
no,
was heavily
Mr. President,
You would have
Mr.
been much
President,
later, Joe.
Mr. President,
much later.
Mr.
You're
President,
talking about 2 million people.
You're not gonna be able
President,
to
as
shut
a
him up.
moderator, we are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but
China.
Let me finish. The point is that the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot.
When was that the point? I mean, he's not wrong, but okay, I guess it's on for the Supreme Court, I guess we're talking about.
As well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is already
You don't know it's on the
begun.
ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is it
you
on the ballot?
said
It's not on the ballot.
Is Trump saying that is Trump saying he's pro-choice? I'm confused. Trump's contesting the idea that abortion would be, or Roe v. Wade would be, threatened, I suppose you could say, if this other judge gets elected. Is Trump saying no? He's like, no, it's not. We like that.
It's on the ballot in the court.
I don't think so.
In the court. Well,
There's nothing happening there.
Donald, would you
And
just
you don't
be quiet
know
for a
her view on Roe v. Wade. You
I
don't know
don't
her
know.
view.
well, all right. Let's
Wait,
all
do we not know her view on Roe v. Wade? That's bizarre.
right, let's talk. We got a lot to win.
I honestly don't think that conservatives are going to get rid of abortion laws, specifically because like they get to hide behind the fact that like Democrats fight for abortion laws and all that. But as a country, I think we know, or at least I'd hope that like the higher ups understand that it's a necessary evil, even if I don't like the idea of abortion. I mean, it's like a necessary evil. If we birth all these children, it's just going to be too much of a stress on the tax system.
Back here, gentlemen, we got a lot of time. So,
Is she very pro-life? Okay, that's fair.
on
I don't know why Biden wouldn't know that.
health care, and then we'll come back to Roe v. Wade.
All right.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they want to give good health care.
If I may ask my question, sir.
Good health care.
You know the problem with the claim that Trump keeps saying, I want to give good health care? He sat down with Christopher Wallace like multiple times. And each time he's like, we're going to have a good health care plan. Just give it another month. And 3.5 years, more than 3.5 years later, we have got nothing, He's got nothing. He doesn't produce a single thing other than removing, that you had to have insurance, the mandate.
over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan to replace.
And it's funny too because like he decided. I remember when he first got elected, he's like, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take care of health insurance, and it was like the dumbest idea to do because it's so difficult. It's such a difficult thing. But he's like, no, this is the #1 thing we're going to start with, and everybody's like, Mr. President, maybe do something easier. He's like, nah, and then he failed, and he's like, moving on. That's what he did. They don't have shit.
Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well,
I got rid of the individual mandate.
I'm going to give you an opportunity.
I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a big chunk of Obamacare.
It wasn't really a big chunk of Obamacare. It was kind of like, it was a part of Obamacare for sure. But a big chunk of Obamacare, honestly, is, pre-existing conditions protections. That was a big part. As well as, like, trying to get everybody on insurance. Again, I don't like the subsidization of private insurance for this, but...
That is absolutely a big thing. That was the worst part of Obamacare.
Sir.
Chris, that was the worst part of Obamacare.
Let me ask my question.
You can make the argument that's the worst part of Obamacare. But again, like, the idea is that, like, if everybody, even healthy people, don't pay into insurance, it's supposed to bring down the overall cost. It pays for older people, right? Because a younger, healthier person wouldn't use it as much, and then older people would. So the older people would actually be draining the system, while younger people would be pushing money into the system. But again, subsidization of private insurance, I don't think is the best way to go for this type of a scenario.
Well, I'll ask Joe. The individual mandate was the most unpopular aspect of Obamacare. I got rid of it.
Okay.
And we will protect people.
I'm the moderator of this debate, and I would like you to let me
If Joe Biden looks like he's going to cry right now.
ask my question, and then you can answer your
question.
Go ahead. You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare, and just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump health care plan?
Right. Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised.
I mean, no offense, Trump, but like literally he was just trying to make a question. The question was, hey, what's your plan? And then you lost it because you're upset because he called you on your shit.
Let me just tell you something, that there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against Big Pharma. Drug prices will be...
I think Trump is cutting drug prices. I'm not entirely sure of the specifics. That's good. It's a good thing. But, like, it's not comprehensive. It's not like a comprehensive plan.
Coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it.
That's fair. That's fair. But to Biden's credit, he was part of the Obamacare. Even if it was flawed, he did kind of try, I guess you could make the argument. But for sure, people are in the pockets of Big Pharma. So I think that, that's a fair criticism.
Done it. So we're cutting health care. All of the things that we've done, insulin. I'll give you an example. Insulin. It was destroying families, destroying people. The cost.
It's true.
I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water, you want to know the truth. So cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because they pay just a tiny fraction.
As I say, this is open discussion.
No,
let me ask you about,
this is big stuff.
Sir, you'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the Vice President, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare, and the argument that he makes and other Republicans make is that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
Well, if I can ask you the question, it will
not
end.
What your party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the
Is he actually proposing a legitimate public option?
American people would still not be in that.
Well, I mean, I know there is one. I feel like we just need a much more streamlined public option for this shit.
option. Number one.
Joe, you
Number
agreed
two.
with Bernie Sanders, who's far left, on the manifesto, we call it, and that gives you socialized medicine.
Look, hey,
Are you saying
I'm not
you
going
didn't
to
agree?
listen to him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot. I'm here
much.
standing facing you, old buddy.
Pocahontas would have left 2 days early. You would have lost every primary.
All he knows how to
on
do
Super
is hurt.
Tuesday. You got
Look,
very lucky.
here's the deal. I got very lucky. I'm going to get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to make.
You think he's going to get some from his wife? Because this debate did not go very well for anybody.
Sure, because here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But
That's kind of what you are there for, though, Joe. You are there to call out his lies. I'm just saying.
I just want to make sure.
Joe, you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
What the fuck is he
I wanna
talking
make
about?
Mr. President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be surprised.
You pick.
You'd be surprised.
What is he talking about? It's like, Mr. President, you don't know how. He doesn't know how to finish. You'd be surprised. I finished pretty quickly. I finished pretty quickly in bed. You'd be surprised.
The wrong guy, the wrong night at the wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
The
manifesto.
whole idea.
Now
let
you're
him-
disavowing it.
There is no manifesto. Number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan.
Folks,
Absolutely agreed
folks, do you have any
and under that
idea
plan,
what
you
this
have
is?
socialized
No, he didn't.
Do you
Mr.
have any?
President.
socialized medicine.
Mr.
Well, I
President.
tell you what, he is not for any help for people needing health care because
Bernie?
because he in fact
That's true.
already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession.
Oh, stop. You can't do that. Like, listen, we don't have a conversation about the way he mismanages COVID. That's fine. But let's be honest here. Right? Like, it would have been bad regardless. Even if it could have been better, it would have been bad. Okay? So, like, this recession was going to happen. Let's keep that in mind. The biggest way that I feel like Trump mismanaged it was the massive tax cuts, honestly, when he first came in. Because, like, this is why we have those. There's a crisis always. We had a crisis in 2009, or excuse me, 2008. Crisis in 2001. Every single fucking time there's a crisis, something happens, and that's one of the reasons we need to collect taxes so that we have a reserve of finances when something happens. But to blame Trump solely for this whole thing is ridiculous. Nobody on the left honestly gives a shit about the way that China tried to hide this virus from us. It's always Trump, 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 Trump. I mean, come on.
Number one. Number two, there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
No, I want to give them better health care at a much lower price.
Honestly, though, your point was brought up. It's very true. If Trump just stopped talking, he probably would have won. Because Biden is stumbling through his words as it is. If Trump just shut the fuck up and let him talk for 2 minutes straight, he would just burn out. He'd be like, he would be done by the end. He would be like flopping around in his brain.
And by the way, he doesn't know how. He doesn't know how to do that.
Fixed it.
He has never offered a plan.
Fixed it to an extent.
He has never done a
as
single
you might
thing.
know, but probably don't.
Gentlemen, you realize if you're both speaking at the same time,
and it's too expensive.
let the president go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better, and I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is, and that destroyed. They shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well or badly? Yeah. If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people, okay? I said, you got to run it so well.
That's what
and I just had a meeting with
What's weird is that, like, I think when he was in Pennsylvania and he was sitting down, or Philadelphia, I don't remember. When he was sitting down with George Papadopoulos, what the fuck his name is. Stephanopoulos? I don't know. I think he made the same point, but like in reverse. He's like, when Obamacare had a choice either to run it really well, even though it was bad, or run it poorly, and I decided to run it poorly. Pop Poopy Dupolis. There you go. So like it's weird that he changed his stance on that.
With them, they said the problem.
Well, it is weird for a normal person, not so much for Trump.
The problem is, no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive. Premiums are too high, and it doesn't work.
Or the reason the premiums are too high is because it subsidizes private insurance, Trump. That's why we need to open up Medicare, honestly. Even maintaining a private option, we should still open up a public option.
We do want to get rid of it.
Chris,
we want to get rid of it.
I understand it, sir, but I have to give you roughly equal time. Good. Please let the vice president talk.
Good.
He has no plan for health care.
True.
Yes, we do.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising.
I think he did lower drug costs, actually. I think that he actually did.
A health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan.
That's kind of true.
The fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
I have one final question for you,
sure.
Mr. Vice President. If Senate Republicans, we were talking
spicy nuggets
originally about the Supreme Court here. If Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact, it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position
So filibuster is basically when somebody just doesn't shut the fuck up and they can't really pass a bill because they just stay on the ground floor and talk the whole time.
I take on that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote.
Bro, why are you dodging this question, dog?
You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now.
Are you going to pack the court?
Make sure you, in fact, let people know you're a senator. I'm not going to answer the question.
Why wouldn't you answer that question?
The question is, the question is,
radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is
You know, Trump is being obnoxious, but he's calling one of shit. Answer the question, man.
on your list, Joe?
Who's
on your list?
Right, gentlemen, I think we've ended this.
He's going to pack the court.
We're not going to give a list. We have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really
That was kind of lame. Wallace should have forced him to answer that question.
a productive segment, wasn't it?
It went really well for you, Biden. You should probably shut the fuck up because you didn't have to answer the question. Trump made you look kind of good, even though Trump was trying to call you out. But, like, the interpretation of the audience is like, this guy won't shut up. But realistically, you wouldn't answer the question. Like, answer the question.
Keep yapping, man.
The people understand, Joe.
They sure
47 years you've done nothing. They understand.
All right. The second subject is COVID-19, which is an awfully serious subject, so let's try to be serious about it. We have had more than 7 million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than 200,000 people have died. Even after we produce a vaccine, experts say that it could be months or even years before we come back to anything approaching normal. My question for both of you is, based on what you have said and done so far and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000.
Wait a minute. Who the fuck did he say good luck to? So, I don't want to be weird, but, like, somebody was talking about how, you know, Biden has a wire in his ear or whatever. I'm pretty sure they both do. But, like, when he said that good luck, was he saying it to himself? Was somebody saying that in his ear? And then he was like, okay, good luck? Was he saying it to Trump? It was just a little funny.
Dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 5% more.
You think it was to Trump? Maybe. Maybe he was just throwing the fucking Chad move.
4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID.
So here's my thing. I just want to throw it out there. Again, Trump could have probably handled this better. I believe that. My thing is, though, it would have been bad regardless. So it would have been bad. Like, how much would we have mitigated the numbers? Honestly, I'm just being honest with you. We still would have had high contractions. I understand that Trump wants to forcefully open. He was not aggressive enough about closing, and he's too aggressive about trying to reopen. Thank God it's the states' rights, especially in the larger states that have decided to manage it better, like New York, which are doing very well. So, if Trump was protected by people not listening to him, which seems to be quite, something that happens quite often. But like this would have been bad regardless. So to completely blame it on Trump out of context, I think is not great.
In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people today are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is.
Fair.
The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people.
I'll give Trump a little bit of the benefit of the doubt there. Like, there is a level of hysteria because, again, this is something that came from China, and they hit it very heavily. Nobody really talks about it. I don't know why. And, like, there's an argument to be made, like, yeah, man, like, that's a bigger focus. Or rather, there's an argument to be made there, and like by the time that we decided to close, which we knew, but we started to know about this in like December, or even early as November. Nobody gave a shit. I'm just saying.
You don't panic. He panicked. In addition to that, what did he do?
I don't think he panicked. I think he just stopped caring.
He went in and we were insisting that the Chinese, the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said
He did say that part, and I'm assuming it's for relations with China.
Owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan. Well, I laid out back in March exactly what we should be doing. And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools. It costs a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand.
My understanding is there are, there's a very solid amount of business loans, small business loans for people during the COVID. Like, I don't think we could have done better economically, but I don't know that that's necessarily my contestment as much as how aggressive he was to open back up and not aggressive enough to close.
Trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if we would have listened to you.
I think at this point, the biggest issue with COVID, I think, was the availability of preventative measures. And that's something that really couldn't have been done faster, honestly, specifically because you have to have certain regulations associated with the factories that would make these, we call it PPE, personal protective equipment. And the bigger issue is how fast it transferred rather than whether there was a fast enough response to create more protective equipment. So I would focus more on that.
You have 2 minutes, sir.
If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000, and one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India. They don't exactly give you a straight count.
That's honestly, I think, a fair assertion.
So you understand. But if you look at what we've done, I closed it, and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I should have closed our country. Wait a minute.
So Trump is referring to a tweet that Biden made, where he was condemning Trump for calling it the Chinese virus. Biden was referring to a tweet that Trump had made where he said he wants to shut down, and also he called it the Chinese virus. And then Biden called him, I think, a racist and a xenophobe. You can make the argument that he was really just specifically referring to the China virus thing. You know, I'm just saying in Biden's defense here.
2 minutes.
You didn't
But, you know,
think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said, President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of you Democrat governors said, President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor.
I don't know what governor he's talking about.
Oh, really? Go take a look.
The problem is that Trump's like, yeah, the Democratic governor said we did a really good job, but it's like you're constantly shitting on the Democratic governors for not opening up faster, and then you constantly criticize New York, even though New York's doing better than I think every state as far as their transfer rates are going. They have very decent numbers, especially for how population dense they are.
The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns. We got the masks. We made the ventilators.
I wish Biden just kept saying who. Produce a name.
You wouldn't have made ventilators. And now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying.
Well, yeah, because now we're at the point where we have manufactured the necessary equipment and we've gotten under control.
We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press. They give me bad press.
That's fair. Some of it's rather deserved, though, Trump. But some of it is unfairly deserved. That's a whole conversation for another day, though.
Because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the job that we did. You don't have it.
It's funny because he brought something up about how he has like bad media coverage, and he's like, I don't care, though. I'm used to it.
In your blood. You could have never done that job.
I know how to do the job. I know how to get the job
Well, you
done.
didn't do very well in swine flu. H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was no economic recession.
Sir, you made a
I would say that the swine flu wasn't as bad as this coronavirus.
There was no recession.
Like inherently, regardless of the way that they've dealt with it, the coronavirus is inherently more impactful and dangerous than the swine flu.
Made a point. Let him answer it.
And there was we didn't shut down the economy. This is his economy he's shut down. The reason it's shut down is because, look, you folks at home, how many of you got up this morning?
It was going to be shut down regardless. Like the Democrat arguments, we should have shut down more, faster. So what are you talking about?
And had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID. How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad?
I don't like this. I don't like it because like I understand what he's doing. He's trying to be like an empathetic plea, but like my uncle passed. This is very uncomfortable for me. I don't really feel like listening to this. It's just like uncomfortable. Like don't weaponize it. Just like come on. This is one of those things that shouldn't be made political, and like both parties are making it political. Even if Trump may be making it more political, it's just gross.
Just holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far more people. Far more people.
And
you would have been.
And by the way,
thank you guys. By the way, for the, I appreciate it.
Your own, his own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up. He said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers. Just a mask. And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine. We're for a vaccine, but I don't trust him at all, nor do you. I know you do.
That's fair. So first and foremost, Trump like totally doesn't give a shit about masks, right? He's even said like, I don't care. Second to the second point, like, yeah, that's true. Like, Trump wouldn't be making the vaccine though. What's not to trust isn't the vaccine itself. It's the how fast it's going to come out, right? Because Trump's also like, I'm going to have it out before we can vote. I'm not taking that vaccine. I'm just telling you. Before we can vote, no thank you. I'll stick to the mask for a while. We'll see next year about the vaccine.
Well, we trust as a scientist.
You don't
trust
Dr.
Johnson
Fauci. Johnson, Pfizer.
Okay, by the way,
gentlemen, let me move on.
It's a good point
to
that Trump made.
Questions about the future, because you both have touched on two of the questions I'm going to ask. Focusing on the future for
It's just funny. He's like, you've both touched on the things I'm about to ask. He's like, yeah, because it's a shit show, and they're just speaking.
President Trump, you have repeatedly either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two.
Imagine that. Could you imagine, like, just being like, how do you do that? You're just like, yo, you're confused. I'm the president. You're a scientist. You're confused on science. Come on.
Words. Yeah. But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies, and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives. God. It is a very political thing.
Jesus Christ.
I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call them left, I don't know what I call them.
That was a jab. No, but like, so yeah, no, they could probably have a vaccine done before the end of the year. I don't know if I trust it because it usually takes quite a while to really develop vaccines. I don't know if I would trust it. We could have a vaccine done. It's about being able to mass produce it and get it out to people safely.
Of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slaoui?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just like
he said, it's a possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also be after
when it's
that.
Generally available.
Ah, it's convenient that it's before the election that we might have the answer available.
Well, we're going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up logistically. They're all set up.
It doesn't. So what's the military? So basically what Trump's saying is like, yeah, we'll make it, and then we'll have the military drive tanks through the fucking streets and deliver the fucking vaccines. Are you going to train the military personnel to like give out shots? I don't understand the argument. It's not about the people getting it there. I don't even know what the hell you're talking about. But like, it's about producing it quickly and safely and in mass.
We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be delivering.
This is the same man.
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up
by Easter.
It would be cool if the tanks drove through the streets and just threw out needles. Here's for you. And just
This would be gone.
They could just put the needles in bullets and then just start shooting everybody with it.
Gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm, and that would take care of it.
Well, in his defense, to the first point, like the warm weather was theorized as to hit like getting reduced, but then the cold weather, there was another theory that it's going to bounce back hard. Also, the second point of putting bleach in your arm, if you did do that, the coronavirus would die in your body, and you would too. So I would call that more of a draw than a win, but...
This is the same man.
That was said sarcastically, you know that. That was said sarcastically.
And so here's the deal. This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year. But the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year to get it out, if we get the vaccine. And pray God we will.
I feel like that like almost helps Trump, because if he said that, he's listened by the end of the year, because of, and like it doesn't matter what administration, their speed in which the vaccine came out would have been the same. Okay, no one's that much of a fucking moron to be like, let's not make the vaccine, right? But Trump could, you know, basically make the point that like, oh, well, my administration has gotten it done and we'll have it out by the middle of next year. Your administration wouldn't. Again, they would have, but at least you could take win there. So like Biden's almost like kind of giving Trump a little bit of an argument there.
Thank God we will.
Mr. Vice President, I want to pick up
You'll have the vaccine sooner
I want to pick up on this question.
Listen, somebody said, Mike Chat's saying about like how he was being sarcastic about the bleach thing, and then somebody brought up a point, okay, being sarcastic about a disease that killed 200,000 people, and that his followers would say, you know, I get your point, but, you know, guys, dark humor, am I right? You guys love dark humor. It's not right, but...
No, you say the public can trust the scientists, but they can't trust President Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris, goes further, saying the...
I can't wait to watch the vice presidents,
public
honestly.
health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it,
It's true.
are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him.
What the fuck kind of answer is that? But yeah, no, they are contributing to that fear. They are. Because that's the thing. If this shouldn't be political, and Trump's doing it too. But you know, being like, oh well, this, that, and the other thing about the virus. Come on, you are making people less aware, like, you know, less willing to take the vaccine. It is kind of an issue. You are politicizing it.
You pointed out he puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
That's
But
fair,
you're
though.
saying
Everybody
you can't,
knows.
or Senator
And
Harris is saying
no,
you can't trust the scientists.
No, you can trust the scientists. She didn't say that. You can't trust.
She said that public health
Did say
experts,
that.
quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists,
That's a fair-
there's thousands of scientists out
That's
there,
a fair
like here at this
assessment.
great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him. That's not. They're the people. And by
I
the way,
spoke to the
and
scientists
Fauci,
that are in
and
charge.
By the way,
they will have the vaccine very soon.
Let him finish.
do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies?
So, do you think that Trump will actually take the vaccine, like, in front of everybody? Just like, boop.
He's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID. He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market, one of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died, and a lot more are going to.
It's a fair point. He's basically saying Trump cared more about the stock market than people. Very fair point.
die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
So-
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college.
I mean, come on, like, it's a fucking train wreck. Oh my god! Like,
You didn't go to Delaware
it's just like it's such a lead to answer the question.
State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me.
This is why debating is stupid. It's fucking two people lying to each other the best that they can. Honestly,
Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years you've done nothing.
Let's have this debate.
And if
We'll
you
see
would have
who's
had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
No,
If you would have had the charge of what I was put through, I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country.
kind of proves it. He's hyper focusing on how great the economy was.
And by the way, now it's being built again.
See,
and
We're
it's
going to
going
get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next
That's fair, though. It is being built rather fast.
segment, sir.
Okay.
It's
Partially due, well, heavily due, in my opinion, to the $600 a week additional monies you got for being on unemployment, which to me sounds like some form of a universal basic income.
going up fast.
Okay.
Look forward to
When it comes to how the virus has been handled so far, the two of you have taken very different approaches, and this is going to affect how the virus is handled going forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've got to provide.
That's like instantly a misrepresentation of the question, because the question is like, hey, Biden, you've been reluctant about opening back up, and then he's been like, oh, well, yeah, you need a plan. So what was your plan involve opening back up with like better measures? Is the reluctance based on Trump not opening up, or is the reluctance generally about opening up?
These businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as with the sanitation they need. You have to
Tell
provide
that
them
to Nancy
plastic.
Pelosi.
Well, he's just shush for a minute.
Tell it to Nancy Pelosi. And Schumer,
by the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't meet with him in the
Okay.
Senate. And he sits on his golf course. And, well, I mean, literally, think about it.
You probably play
think
more than
about
I
it.
do, Joe.
What about this question of reopenings and the fact?
Well, he wants to shut down this country, and I want to keep it open. And we did a great thing.
You know, not for nothing, but like, you know, the reopenings in the places that matter more. And I say that matter more because they're more population dense. Those are the areas, like the, honestly, Democratic areas, right? They're more population dense. Those have to be done delicately. And none of those progressive areas have listened to Trump on how to reopen. So, you know, Trump has the advantage here of taking credit for something that he didn't do in any capacity, but in fact was trying to hinder the positive way to reopen. Because New York is slowly opening, and it's doing well, and the numbers they're really good.
Shut it down.
Wait a minute, Joe. Let me shut you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot. But he wants to shut it down. More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election on November 3rd.
I want to move on to another
because
subject.
it's a
I want to move on to another subject.
But those states are not doing well that are shut down right now.
Those states are doing very well that are shut down. I don't know why. Literally all Biden has to say is like, that's wrong. Those states are doing very well. They're actually doing better than the other states.
President Trump, you have begun to increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you...
I mean, listen, of course, waiters are going to touch their masks and then touch plates, honestly. But like this idea that they just shouldn't be used because of that is ridiculous.
No, I think masks are okay. You have to understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it.
It's just so funny because you know Trump doesn't give a fuck about masks. And he's just like, you know what? That's his prop. He like came ready. He's like, oh, look at this. I have a mask. Poggers. You know? To his credit, I'm surprised he didn't pull out a fucking, like, one of those just blue generic masks. He actually has, like, one with, like, it's, like, embroidered. He's like, look at my mask. Poggers. You didn't think I had a mask? Guys, fuck you.
Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test.
I think, though, really quick, guys. I know that, like, you guys have been waiting for this more than anything else. So this is what we all have been waiting for, this part of the debate, and I can't wait to get through it.
And you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to, but I wear masks when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen.
That's not really an insult. If anything, that's like a positive. It's like, okay, then he respects the usage of the mask and he respects doctors' requests to put a fucking mask on. One of the easiest things you could do to prevent an incredibly serious thing.
I will say this.
Vice President Biden, go ahead, sir.
It's like, I saw a kid the other day on a bike. He's wearing the biggest helmet I've ever seen. It's ridiculous. He has the helmet on even when he's not on the bicycle. He puts it on before he gets on the bike. What an asshole. That's basically what Trump just said about Joe Biden, right?
Look, the way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The Congress.
But I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks in social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also said the opposite. They've also said...
Who said the opposite? Wait, so... So Biden brought up the point that doctors have said if we wear masks from now until the end of the year, we could save 100,000 lives. So Trump's argument here, okay, so you guys know, is that if we wear masks, the doctors have said the opposite. If we wear the masks, we might increase the amount of deaths by 100,000. That's literally the opposite, right? All right.
No serious person said the opposite.
Well, look
serious.
At Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the opposite.
He did not say the opposite.
We got a little bit more than a minute left in this
masks
segment.
Are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks are good. I'm okay with masks.
I want to ask you both about one last subject because your different approaches has even affected the way that you have campaigned. President Trump, you're holding large rallies with crowds.
Yeah, so a lot of people are saying that the CDC said the opposite. Yeah, in the beginning. So basically what happened is the CDC said that masks didn't do anything, right? Because the reason they said that while hospitals were rounding up as many masks as possible. They honestly said that intentionally to lie to the American people so that they could get masks where they felt that they needed most, which is fair. But it is lying to the American people, and you see how those types of lies have such a vastly negative impact on things, not only just in politics, but just in general. Lying to the American people is not a good thing. That's why you shouldn't have lied, because now Trump has ammunition that he can misrepresent. But you know, the American government shouldn't have lied. The CDC shouldn't have lied.
Packed together, thousands of
and honestly, it's why Trump supporters don't give a shit. You know, because they're like, well, the American government lied to us. Like, yeah, they did. Even if you think it's for their betterment, they still lied. You know, they could have said like, hey, listen, masks work, but we encourage you not to buy them. Or even we're going to make sure we provide them to hospitals first. Because that's what they should have said. They said, listen, the masks work. Wear something over your face like a cloth or a shirt. Tie your shirt around your fucking face. That's better than nothing. And we're going to provide these masks to the hospitals and doctors first because they need them more. They could have done that. Instead, they decided to lie to people. To say that you're going to the molecules will go through the mask.
Outside, yes, sir. Agreed. Vice President Biden, you are holding much smaller events with...
Because nobody will show up.
People with...
He got Chris Wallace to laugh. The argument when Chris was like, Trump, you have big rallies, nobody wears masks. Biden, you have smaller rallies. And then Trump's just like, boom, instantly, nobody wants to go to his rallies. And you gotta laugh at a wall. Look, he's laughing. It's the most wholesome part of the night, and it's just beautiful. It's like when you have your story where it's like things kind of go upwards. This is the top. This is the best part of the night, and it just fucking drops like a roller coaster from this point on. Okay,
it's true. Nobody shows up to his rallies.
All right. In any case, why you holding the big rallies? Why you not? You go first, sir.
Because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
but are you not worried about
a great job as a
disease?
president, and I'll have 35,000 people show up at airports. We use airports.
Are you not worried about the disease
We have a lot of people.
Sir?
Well, so far, we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. And we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see. I mean, and literally on 24 hours' notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay. By the way, did you see one of the last big rallies he had? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those other people.
Wouldn't that be... Oh.
That's what he said. I can't...
You made the argument of personal choice. It's your choice whether you want to die of the coronavirus or not. But Trump's like, not me. Again, though, if he had done that but encouraged mask wearing, it would have been fine. But like now, it just makes him look hypocritical.
I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
We've had no negative effect.
No negative effect.
We've had no negative effect. And we've had 35,000, 40,000 people.
The reason why they may actually not have had negative effects is mostly because those are not population-dense areas where there's a lot of infrastructure like cycling around. Right, like New York, where like everyone, like, you know, you got fucking shipments coming from other countries all the time. Interact here, interact there. Big airports, boom, 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 boom. So maybe there weren't negative impacts from Trump because he has these rallies in these like not shitty. Excuse me, I'm sorry. These smaller, less population dense areas. I didn't mean shitty per se.
Just quickly finish up because I want to move on to our next.
Yes, I would. He's been totally irresponsible the way in which he has handled the social distancing and people wearing masks, basically encourage them not to.
All right.
He's a fool on this.
If you could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on
Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the economy?
Yes.
The economy is, I think it's fair to say, recovering faster than expected from the shutdown.
Much faster.
In the second quarter. The unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected.
That's good.
President Trump,
the thing is that like it's actually good that we're it's good that we're recovering faster than expected. The worry here is that like if we push too hard too fast, when we do have a relapse, which is going to happen, how hard will that relapse hit us? That's kind of where we kind of need to have the conversation about.
You say we are in a
Focus our minds on
recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the
It's always with the China thing.
Plague came in, we closed it down.
I just want to say that the economy was the greatest that we've ever had. That's, you know, it's an objective fact. Again, though, I make this point constantly about how, realistically speaking, it wasn't sustainable because we did take a massive, you know, increase to our deficit. You know, $200+ billion a year added to our annual federal deficit just from these tax cuts alone. And if you really look at the situation, you know, we did these tax cuts. The trickle down, I don't think was worth it. I think we could have spent the same money directly just giving money to the middle class, but whatever. And not only is the middle class like temporary tax cuts, but a lot of these companies engage in stock buybacks. They increase the value of their own company. And now what's happening? Hey, we need money. We need a bailout. So the idea is like we have a crisis every like 10 years. Honestly, it's a fucking crisis every goddamn 10 years. And like we're still not getting it. We're still not getting it that we need regulations and we need these taxes so that we can bail ourselves out when something happens. It's like you guys, you know, wouldn't you put more money away in case there was an emergency? That's why you save your money. We're not doing that as a country. We're just constantly bankrolling more and more bullshit.
Which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should close it down, and he was wrong. And again, 2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000 people is too much. One person is too much.
He should just say, like, what doctor said that? Who said that? Who made that estimate?
Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people, between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening at some of your Democrat-run states where they have these...
I'm surprised he actually brought up, like, mental health issues, honestly.
Tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week. You saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election. They think they're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting people. People know what to do. They can social distance. They can wash their hands. They can wear masks. They can do whatever they want. But they got to open these states up. When you look at North Carolina, when you look, and these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce.
I mean, no, it's not fair. It's a virus. The fucking virus doesn't care. Nothing is fair. Life isn't fair. And unfortunately, we have to do the necessary measures to make sure we get through this in the safest way possible to mitigate as many losses as possible. I understand that people want to get out of their house. Most of the... Here's the problem. Here's the big problem. Most of the people complaining about wanting to go out are people who are complaining because they don't have the money. They're like, I want to go back to work because I can't fucking live. And you're giving all these big cuts, or excuse me, they're giving these big bailouts to these big corporations instead of just fucking giving it to people who are like, hey, I want to work. That's everybody. Everybody was like, hey, I want to work because I need money. My kids are going to fucking die. So instead of saying we should expand the amount of money people get, you're like, we got to open back up. Because there's no way we could get money to people. That's right. No type of, you know, any type of income, universal basic income would work. Fine, whatever. You get my point?
Look at what's going on with alcoholism and
UBI?
drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll...
And like, yeah, alcoholism, drugs, mental health problems have been going up. People are feeling very enclosed, very tight, very stressed out about money, stressed out about the coronavirus. It's not helping that you're politicizing it. Both of them are politicizing it, which contributes to this type of this amount of fear. But this has been an issue going on for like the past, you know, period of time. I'll say the last 3 years specifically because it's the first time, you know, these past 3 years where the average like age of living, I'm portraying that very poorly. Because my point has been going down. The average life expectancy rate has been is going down past 3 years, first time in 100 years. So,
close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country.
What's great? I'm just so confused.
And destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Another billionaires have made another $300 billion.
Listen, he's right. Absolutely. But I want to bring something up. The millionaires and billionaires who have done very well are the people who've run like Amazons and Walmarts and stuff like that, where like they're, especially Amazon, where like that's really the best way to get stuff with the least amount of contact, right? The issue isn't how well billionaires did during the coronavirus. The issue is the tax laws that allowed billionaires to not really have to pay taxes, which honestly, you have a hand in. Because you were in Congress. So, you know, stop giving millionaires and billionaires massive tax cuts and allowing them to take advantage of different tax codes and whatnot to pay as little, to dodge paying taxes, right? We get it. Based tax dodging, but come on.
Because of his profligate tax proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America, how well are you doing? This guy paid a total of $750 in tax.
You got him. You only paid $750.
Wait, no, sir. It's just wrong statement. Yeah, I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president.
I mean, that, again, like he could have managed coronavirus better, but that's not all on him. Come on.
In American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those.
And that's if he gets voted out, Mr. Biden.
People who have been on the front lines. Those people who have been saving our lives. Those people who have been out there dying. People who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools. Why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
All right. Your time is up, sir. Well, we are going to get to...
I have to respond to that.
Well, you both have
I'd like
2
to see him
minutes,
respond.
Excuse me. He made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools... No, people want their schools open. They don't want to be shut down. They don't want their state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York. It's so sad what's happening in New York. It's almost like a...
What are you talking about? What's happening in New York? It's like the best. It's like the best state in the United States when it comes to the handling of the coronavirus.
And I'm not sure it can ever recover.
And it's not because of you, dog. It's at all. Really, I mean, I don't particularly care for Cuomo, but like, he was very transparent every single day. This is what's happening with the coronavirus. These are the number of people that are dead. This is what's going on. New York's doing pretty well overall, considering what's going on. They're doing rather well.
Cover what they've done in New York. People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives. They'll be careful, but they want their schools open. I'm the one that brought back football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football. It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And people of Ohio are very proud of me. And you know how I found out? When
Who fucking cares about football, dude? Come on.
We're going to get to your economic plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr. President, as you well know, there's a new report that in 2016, the year you were elected president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax each of those years. I know that you pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific question. Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax.
That's not true. He paid a lot of taxes, right? They're talking specifically about federal income tax, right? We're not talking about state income tax. We're not talking about Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Those are actually separate. They're listed separately. But from what we've seen, okay, Trump's paid like a dick. In the last like 18 years, like 11 of those years, he paid nothing in federal income tax. And I want you guys to keep this in mind. What those documents are what his people, right? His tax people produced to show us. So that's the best framing of what happened that you possibly could have gotten, okay? Just keep that in mind. That's the best frame, and it wasn't good, okay? It was rough. It's not good. I know you guys are like, oh, base tax evasion is not great.
And let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers. I paid $38 million 1 year. I paid $27 million.
Show us your
Maybe, but again, out of the other 11 years, you paid $0.
tax returns.
I went, you'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it.
I mean, not for nothing, but you should have been finished 3 years ago. Like, you know, every president since, like, I think the 1970s has released their tax returns. You don't have to, but why not?
You know, if you want to do, go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under-leveraged because the assets are extremely good. And we have a very, I built a great company.
I'm asking you a specific question, which is...
Let me tell you.
I understand all of that. I understand all of that. No, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
I'm asking you a question.
That's so childish.
Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017?
Millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars,
So
yes.
not 750?
Millions of dollars, and you'll get to see it. And you'll get to see it.
We kind of just did, no?
Chris, let me just tell you something, that it was the tax laws. I don't want to pay tax. Before I came here...
He just said he paid tons of taxes, and he's like, I don't want to pay taxes. So now he's kind of admitting he didn't pay a ton of taxes.
I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build the building and we get tax credits.
Listen, not for nothing, but Trump, he's right. Listen, he's right. Listen, okay? The government's here to protect us, okay? And the government let business owners fuck us, right? Human nature is to pay as little taxes as possible, okay? You know, if you're somebody who makes tips, you think I honestly don't think you're going to report those, okay? Trump's doing the same thing. Not good. Don't agree with it. But Biden did allow all these loopholes. So, you know, Trump's not wrong. He's really not wrong. He's not wrong. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you, bro. Okay?
Like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue, you get a massive, which, by the way...
And I'm sure Biden uses loopholes as well.
...was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now, the man got...
And for context, there seems to be a lot of suggestion that, like, some of the things Trump wrote off were very wrong, for sure. I'm just saying, Biden did allow for these laws to happen.
Fired right after that happened. But
Vice President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him... put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher makes on the money a school teacher makes.
Yeah.
Is because of him. He says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax.
No, but it's because of you, dog. You're a contributor to it. You allowed it to happen, and you supported it to happen. My understanding.
Tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code.
Yeah.
I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. And we're going to...
But see, here's the thing, is the Trump tax cuts are not, I don't like them, but those are separate from the tax code that Biden helped produce. Right? So, like, you're being very dishonest here. Biden. Honestly. I'm going to reverse the Trump tax cuts. Who fucking... I mean, you should, I think. But who fucking cares? Doesn't change the tax code. It doesn't change the tax code.
I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts. and make sure that we invest in the people who, in fact, need the help. People out there need help.
But why didn't you do it over the last 25 years?
Because you weren't
Why didn't
president.
you do it over?
Why did you do it the last 25 years? Fair question.
Because you weren't president screwing things up.
What does that have to do with anything? Why didn't you do this before? For 25 years, he's like, because you were president. It's like, what do you? Well, how long do you think he's been president for, man?
You were a senator. And
You're
by
the
way,
worst
you were a
president
vice-
America has ever had.
I mean, that might be true, but it's just kind of off topic.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe, I've done more.
See, the problem is that like you can make an argument that Trump's not a great president, but you can't make that your only argument. You have to elaborate on that, Mr. Biden.
In 47 months, I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe. We've done things that you never even thought of doing, including
Gentlemen.
fixing the broken.
You- I just want to talk about. All right, he's like, in 47 months, we've done more than you've done in 47 years, right? I think that Trump's been in for about 45 months. Am I wrong? I'm wrong about that. It's less. No, like, I don't know. But you get my point. It's just silly. I mean, it's accurate-ish. But it's just kind of funny.
Military that you gave me, including taking care of your vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan, if you were to be elected president, focuses a lot on big government, big taxes, big spending. I want to focus first on the taxes. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well,
that might be fair. I mean, we definitely need to update like the tax code and get people to stop being able to take advantage of tax loopholes. Very much. Tax evasion is really bad for the country, okay? That's the problem. But I suppose you can make the argument that right now isn't the time to propose those. Really isn't. It's going to be maybe a year or two from now, honestly. We're going to have to suck it up for a while. It could be catastrophic to restructure taxes right now. I'm just being honest with you.
just take a look at what is the analysis done by Wall Street firms. Points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make this federal government spend $600 billion a year.
I would imagine that's a very generous estimation because buying American is a fantastic idea, but it is going to raise costs, right? And it's going to lower people's wanting to consume those particular products. So what I would assume is that his projection is based off of the Americans buying at the current rate while at the same, you know what I'm saying? But also at an increased price, which I doubt is going to be a direct correlation with each other.
On everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a company.
But respectfully, sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
By the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 19.
That's nice. That's great. That's honestly great that you're going to increase the taxes to 28%, Biden. But the bigger problem isn't the amount of taxes they're supposed to pay. It's that they're not paying it because they're dodging it. You can make it a fucking 100%. They're still dodging it.
91 companies, federal.
You just got to stop the loopholes more than anything else.
In the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny.
Because here's the thing, right? Let's say we raise it from 21 to 20%. I'm sure we would actually bring in more revenue. The problem is that right now, maintaining tax cut loopholes encourages people in companies to specifically hire people to evade taxes. And since smaller businesses can't afford to do that to that degree, it actually promotes not only monopolies, but also businesses that are already big maintaining their strength while smaller businesses not being able to push as hard and as fast as these big businesses. We needed to get rid of the tax evasions, honestly.
In tax, making billions of dollars.
Because now you increase 28%. It's like, oh, great. And what the other businesses that are assholes, they can't, it's like, I can't afford that and I can't afford a lawyer to do everything. You get my point?
You do it before when you were vice president with Obama.
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was
Right.
your tax proposal.
I got it done. And you know what happened?
Yeah, you got it done.
Our economy boomed like it's never boomed.
The economy.
Sure, the economy did boom. I hate that like progressives don't bring up the fact that like it's unsustainable growth because it massively inflated the annual federal deficit, and all these companies now that invest in stock buybacks and strengthening their own company are now asking for bailouts now that we have a fucking recession. And there's a recession like every 10 years, like clockwork. So we need to have taxes to prepare for these issues. We need to have reserves, guys.
Mr. President,
It's like nobody fucking thinks about that. It's insane how nobody's like, yeah, let's bring up a commonsensical argument. I can't do that. That's stupid. Fuck you.
wait, now, Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
And like, not for nothing, but more deregulation leads to like incredibly risky investments, which leads to a crash, which leads to a bailout of a bank. You understand what I'm saying? Right? Like one of the regulations Obama put into place was like the regulation where as a bank, you can't leverage the worth of your bank upwards of 30 times, which was happening, which is a contributor to the stock market crash, right? To the Great Recession, was that there are some banks that were making risky investments up to 30 times their actual cost, like the amount of money they had. And then they would shit the bed. They would need a bailout. The bank owners, you know, the banks would get bailed out. They'd make money, and then the American people would lose money. You need regulations. It's not a positive thing to not have regulations. Government exists. Government is supposed to be the collection of a society, managing that society fairly and representing that society. But clearly, both of these guys are not representatives of what a government should be. And that's what the problem is. The problem is that the government isn't doing the right thing because we don't encourage them to do the right thing. That's the bigger issue.
Correct.
We have two types of people that are like less government and people that are like more government, right? But then nobody's like, hey, better government. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody's talking about really getting money out of it. Like Ted Cruz and AOC talked about it like once for like 3 days about how they wanted to get money out of politics. Both of them stopped talking about it. Even fucking AOC, like hyper progressive, was like, we need to get money out of politics. Just kidding. I'm bored.
Not lower taxes for the American people.
Let me,
Excuse me.
But in Obama's, you talk about the economy booming, it turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had
He got named. To Trump's credit, on this specific thing, right? That's clear, very true. Obama had better job growth numbers than Trump. But we need to, and like, not to give Trump a leg up, but we do need to contextualize the fact that it is easier to crawl out of a recession than it is to take a good economy and make it better. Okay? There's really nowhere to go but up when Obama came in. It was a mess, but there's really nowhere to go up. He had, a lot of economists said, a slower recovery, an unusually slow recovery, right? Which very heavily suggests like, hey, they should have gone up faster. But it's easier to do that, right? So I think when Obama came into office, there was like a 10% unemployment rate. He got that down to like about 4.5%, right? Trump took 4.5% to 3%. I would argue that 10% to 4.5% is easier, or at least as easy as 4.5% to 3.5%. Because like as you get closer to that zero, it gets more and more difficult to actually get down more. So I'm going to give Trump the benefit of the doubt on that one. But of course, he's not even going to say that.
the slowest recovery since economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also,
not for nothing, okay. What he just said was that the recovery in the Great Recession, that was what we had. That was Obama's recovery, okay, was the slowest since 1929. Two things. One, that's untrue. The dot-com bubble burst in 2001 was slower than that. But who fucking cares if it was true? Who fucking cares even if it was true? You want to know why? Okay, because he just said, hey, this is the slowest recovery since the Great Depression. Yeah, do you want to know what the worst recession was since the Great Depression? It was the Great Recession of like 2008, right? So even if that was true, it doesn't fucking matter because it was bad. It was really bad. The Great Recession, the recession that Obama dealt with, was almost as bad as the Great Depression. Okay, so if it was almost as slow, that's okay. I'm okay with that. Because it makes fucking sense. No?
They took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty.
I doubt that half of them would do that. But of course, it would discourage economic growth. But like, you know, let's eliminate them. Let's start putting money in the pockets of middle class and lower class Americans, right? Trickle down pretty much just doesn't. It's never worth its bang. The bang isn't worth the buck, right? Or the buck. What, you get my point? Trickle up, better idea.
Companies that are already here, they'll leave for other places. They will leave, and you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen.
Look, we inherited the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about. We handed him a booming economy.
No, you handed him a solid economy. All right, it wasn't just booming. It was a solid economy. It was good.
It wasn't booming. It wasn't booming. It was the weakest recovery since 1929. Wait, is it fair to...
Again, untrue. Also, if it was true, it would be justified.
Is it fair to say he blew it when fact, when there was record low unemployment before COVID?
Yeah, but
and that's true. Again, I don't think the tax was worth it. But Trump did have a strong economy. He had a very powerful economy. He did quite a good job in that sense. So you got to give him some credit, you know?
Because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in the hole.
Excuse me.
I mean, not for nothing, but I don't think that that's true. And manufacturing is going down because of technology. And guess what we never talked about in this fucking debate was technology. We never talked about how technology is displacing jobs and driving down wages. Nobody gives a shit. Okay? Poggers.
Chris, wait.
Number two.
Chris.
Number three.
They said it would take... No, you're on number two.
No.
Chris. They said it would take a miracle to bring back...
Listen. I just want to make a point here, okay? I just want to make a point here, okay? This is childish arguing bullshit, but, you know, part of being the president is going to have to be maintaining composure through obnoxious shit like this, Biden. So, you know, it's still a test in some ways.
Manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing.
Well, yeah, because like those jobs are going away. See, the problem is like you gave massive tax cuts to companies to bring, and you know, regulation cuts to bring back these jobs that, like, honestly, it's a stopgap. It's temporary. You know, technology is going to become cheaper. You know, the only thing you could do is make it incentivize making people work for those those jobs to the degree where like you just strip them of their rights in those jobs, right? If not, technology is going to displace this shit, and we need to start taxing technologies.
Fair.
I'm the guy that brought back the automobile industry.
All right, let him.
We brought back. I was asked to bring back Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone.
Then I think they kind of nay-nayed themselves, actually.
He blew it. And in fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies came in from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to Ohio.
They're not having that.
And they didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done.
Like a fact check on that. I wish Wall's fact check. I'm assuming it's true because nobody contested it.
Very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher...
He was waiting that one, man. You know, he's like, but wait. They told him backstage, they're like, Biden, Joe, you got to pop in there. Art of the deal, art of the steal. Bang it out. Just like somebody's like, Donald, you got to do this. You got to say 47 years in office. I've done more than 47 months. You know, that like these zingers. They had somebody writing up zingers. Art of the deal, art of the steal. And Biden was like, that's fucking mind-blowing. That's great. All my mental energy is going to go into remembering that. And I'm going to stumble through the rest.
Deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit with Mexico.
Your lunch. All right, gentlemen.
Listen, man, Trump was trying to deal with China, and then this whole this whole coronavirus shit happened. So, you know, that's why we got nay-nayed. Hey, but maybe China did it on purpose. That's like, to stop the trade deal. I don't think so. It's a conspiracy theory. Don't let's take that seriously, but you know.
China ate your lunch, Joe, and no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars. Takes out billions of dollars to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also, while we're at it, why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Burisma to deserve $183,000?
You've asked your question, let him answer.
None of that is true.
Oh, really?
But no, Mr. President,
Mr.
President, please.
Totally discredited.
My understanding it is actually totally discredited. That's my understanding.
Totally discredited. And by the way,
well, wait, he didn't get $3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice,
he got $3.5 million.
That is not true.
Oh, really?
Mr. President, it's an open discussion, please.
Now,
it's a fact.
Well, you have raised an issue. Let the Vice President answer.
Discredited.
Did Burisma pay him $183,000 a month with no experience in energy?
Mr. President,
I mean that part may be true, but I mean that's nepotism, okay? So like Trump's argument's like, hey, did your son get a job without having experience? It's like, well, Donald, did you do the same to employ your son with no experience? The nepotism aspect, I don't really give a shit. I'm just being honest with you.
Nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
Mr. President, let him answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly discredited.
By who?
And
the media.
By everybody. Well,
so my understanding that there is a claim from Senate Republicans that this is true. It hasn't been confirmed. I'm not going to say it's not true. I don't know if it's been completely dismissed. This came about a week ago, just for context. Yeah.
By the media, by our allies, by the World Bank, by everyone has discredited. Matter of fact, even the people who testified under oath.
So let me ask you this, Joe.
No, go ahead, Mr. I'm listening to you.
People he got $3.5 million from Moscow.
He testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I
really?
did it
I'd
honorably.
like to know who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list of the people who testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a good job.
Some people don't do a good job. With you,
go ahead. Wait a minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me. This.
Hey, let me just say you.
No. I'm Mr. President.
$3.5 million, Joe.
That is simply.
Why did he deserve $3.5 million from Moscow?
Look, here's the deal.
It's a mess.
We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night. His family's already...
My family lost a fortune by coming down and helping us with government.
And that's such a...
Mr. President.
Every single one of them lost a fortune.
This is not about my family or his family. It's about your family.
This is crazy.
True. It doesn't want to talk about what you need. You, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about here.
All right, that's the end of the segment. We're moving on.
He didn't take them.
Well,
Vice President, no.
Can I be honest? It's a very important
question. Try to be honest.
He stood up.
No, the answer to the question is no.
Ukraine.
No, sir.
With $1 billion, if you
that is absolutely not true.
You're doing it.
You're going to have
true,
gentlemen. I hate to raise my voice, but it seems to be.
This is so pathetic.
Different than the two of you?
This is
here's
kind
the
of pathetic.
point.
We have 6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
So I just want to say, okay, I want to say one thing, okay? That this is a shit show for sure. Okay, it's a 100% massive shit show, and like I feel really bad for Christopher Wallace having to deal with this shit, right? But we have to keep in mind that this is what the news stations want, because if they didn't, the remedy would be shutting off people's mics when they're not supposed to be talking. This is encouraged. This type of behavior is encouraged by all news outlets. They want this to happen. They're eating it up. Everybody's talking about how fun this was, how crazy this was. Oh, it was a dumpster fire. So shut their fucking mics off. Because the reality is that this shouldn't be so fucking entertaining. But it is. It's a fucking train wreck. Because nobody will do the right... Turn the fucking mics off. Tell them to just let them talk when it's their time. Honestly. We don't want to do that, though. We encourage people to interrupt other people. Because it's entertaining. But it's not good for the country.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more interrupting
Well, that's
than
all
he
right,
has.
but he does plenty.
Okay, to Trump's credit, Biden did do the first interrupt. It was more of a soft whisper of an annoying cat compared to Trump's barking like a dog. But, you know, I'll just give him that credit.
Sir, less than
plenty.
No, less than you have. Let's please continue on.
Like a third. And Trump's has been much more aggressive.
The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to say, with the Charlottesville situation, I believe it was over like a statue. It's so hard to remember now because that wasn't the main, you know, focus of it, because there was a lot of violence and racism associated with it. What I'm going to say right now, because they're going to bring it up, about how, you know, Trump said there was good people on both sides. Realistically speaking, he said that and then he condemned white supremacy. Okay? He did do that. He did do that 3 years ago. All right? That's true. And he was specifically referring to the people who were in favor of maintaining the statue. That's all I'm saying. Okay? I think it's important to note that, even if it's not the politically correct thing to note.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you.
I don't think that's true. There is a lower black unemployment rate, but you could certainly make the argument that the culture, I suppose you would say, that Trump has cultivated is very toxic and not good for race relations. Though, you could also make the argument that that started during the Obama administration because, you know, Obama was divisive in the sense that when the economy didn't blow back up, a lot of people started turning to racism, you know? They were like, black president, I'm blaming the black president. And like people often do, they do as much as possible. They'll stack as many insults as possible onto it. And so, you know, people focus on his race. Not a great thing. All right. Just saying. But you can use the term "Make America Great Again" as like the perfect example of how Trump kind of riled up racial tensions, specifically in the way that when you say "Make America Great Again" to, I would say, most conservatives, they go, oh, back when the middle class was booming, right? In like the 60s. That's usually what they'll say. Or 50s and 60s. When you say it to a progressive, they go, oh, racism, right? And then when you say it to a racist, they go, oh, racism, right? And the problem is that Trump hasn't done a good job contextualizing what "Make America Great Again" means. I think it's because he's an idiot rather than doing it intentionally. But you can make the argument that he's trying to play to his base, right? Or that he simply doesn't know how to make the argument of, like, I'm talking about middle class, not racial tensions. So, wanted to just kind of bring all that to light.
Is why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency.
It's true.
It's about the Constitution.
My question is, what are you planning to do to bring like equity to black Americans, right? Just saying. What is it that you could really do? Because it's more about bringing equity to poor people than it is about black people per se, because middle-class black Americans, I don't think face the same, they don't face the same, you know, levels and types of racism that impoverished black Americans do, right? And because poverty is the key. You know, a lot of the interactions, the negative interactions between police officers and black people are poor black people who are in an area with a culture cultivated by systemic racism that encourages not going to school, not bettering yourself, and selling drugs and committing crimes. And this, again, it's due to lack of opportunity in those areas, right? I don't really see what Biden's going to do to bring that opportunity back. If I really wanted to give Trump the benefit of the doubt, even if I think it's the wrong way, he is providing and continuing a strong economy, which will create more jobs, for more opportunity for Black Americans. Just saying, I don't think it's enough. I think it's rather marginal, and I think that there could be a better approach for it, like universal basic income. But if I had to pick between the two, solely on economic policy, okay, I would have to choose Trump. All right, that's all I'm saying, because there's two levels to this. There's the social level, and then there's the economic level. Like most things, there's the two levels, right? From a social perspective, Trump is worse than Biden. From an economic perspective, Biden is worse than Trump. That's my argument. That's what I would say. Now, maybe Biden's economic policy would be better, but you know, Trump has created a very strong economy, even if I disagree with the way he got there. So the argument's there, guys. I'm just saying, okay?
And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the race is when those people, close your eyes, remember what those people look like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, spewing, and just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman.
That's true. I don't think that was everybody on the side of defending the statue. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I don't think it was.
Got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president's ever said anything like that.
It is who's
now.
In that same breath, I believe Trump also condemned white supremacy. Just saying.
Sir.
Second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all.
It is fair.
This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is the...
I think the disproportionality between the impact of coronavirus, I believe that's what he just said, is totally due to like economy. It's not like the coronavirus is racist, right? It's the way that we have wealth distributed in the United States. Not even the wealth distribution. The opportunity presented to Black Americans, impoverished Black Americans, simply doesn't exist. The opportunity extended to all poor Americans really does not exist. So poor people are more negatively impacted by the coronavirus because they don't have the ability to take off of work. They don't have the ability to afford personal protective equipment. They're not as educated per se, poor people, on the positive benefits. They don't have the money to go to the doctor. You get my point, right? They generally live in houses that are more crowded. All these things, will of course make the coronavirus more impactful on poor people.
Is a savior of African Americans? This man cares at all?
He threw the white savior at him.
This man's done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is...
Again, man, listen, you guys could call me a class reductionist if you want. There certainly needs to be a social perspective there as well, not just an economic perspective. But I think that the first step is always going to be, providing equity and opportunity to people that don't have it as a first way, even of reducing racism, right? Because a lot of times this racism is founded in stereotypes, and those stereotypes are founded in the ways that people act, and the ways those people act are founded in systemic racism, denying opportunities. So, you kind of have to go to the source of hey, let's get the opportunity and let's get the finances there first. And while I don't like Trump, he had a very strong economy. Again, even if I didn't like the way that he did it.
So you have to look.
So when you come to the equity argument, I tend to side more with Trump here. Between the two of you, we have two choices. Keep that in mind.
Look at what he talks about. You have to look at what he did. And what he did has been disastrous for the African-American community.
So,
President Trump, you have 2 minutes. Why should Americans trust you over your opponent to deal with
he
racism?
did a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, super
I believe that's actually true, yeah.
predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that.
He said some, even if he didn't specifically say those things, he did say some rather disparaging things about black people, so.
And they call you a super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American.
He's right about that too. He did release a good amount of people out of jail. Although, I mean, I guess you could say part of that's due to the COVID because they were trying to uncrowd jails. But even before that, he was working on getting people out of jail, you know. And people are gonna be like, well, it wasn't him. It was like Kim Kardashian, whatever. But like, he still supported it, you know.
Population community. You have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why, if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States.
I mean, you'd make the argument that progressives don't want the support of law enforcement because they're corrupt, which I think, you know, I still would want the support of the police officers. I respect our police. But there's an argument to be made there that the system is corrupt. You know, I don't know. I don't remember if they talk about Breonna Taylor, but to that point, I have the big problem with that case and that conversation is that there's a progressive perspective is that Breonna Taylor was innocent, and there's a conservative perspective that the police were innocent. But the real problem wasn't necessarily the police or Breonna Taylor. You know, I tend to side with the progressive argument, but the bigger issue is the fact that the judge allowed the police that got the warrant and the judge that signed off on the warrant, they got it on a false pretense and they lied. And then, of course, you don't question your superiors. On top of the fact that the system was, you know, you're allowed to do no-knock warrants, not have body cameras on, all these different things. It's a system issue, and the superior and the cops honestly were scapegoated. The judge should have been fired. The police who faked the warrant or lied about the warrant, got a warrant on false pretenses, should have been fired. But we don't give a shit.
I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement.
Of course, the Portland sheriff is going to be like, yeah, I support Trump because it's fucking crazy out here because Antifa goes nuts.
You can't even say the word law enforcement because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle, they heard we were coming in the following day and they put up their hands and we got back.
Oh, did the Portland sheriff tweet that he doesn't support Trump? Well, you just nay-nayed yourself, Trump. That's funny. I didn't know that. That's funny. I like that. Well, you know, fuck me then. My bad.
Back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and in many cases radical left, and they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe.
That part about having him wrapped around their finger is kind of fair because Biden is a fucking pushover, and I think he'll do whatever he needs to win, but maybe he'll reshift now that he has to, like the Democrats have to back him regardless. I mean, he did say before, I am the Democratic Party. He's like, I am the law, right? So maybe Biden will surprise us and he'll not. If Biden surprises us and nuts up, then I think that like that's definitely, I mean, definitely like a yeah, I'll vote Biden kind of a deal.
A point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race.
It's fair.
Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case, decided not to charge any of the police.
No, I guess I could have brought that point up later. No.
With homicide. You said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there is. There's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and
It stumbled through that.
in law enforcement.
I agree. I think all of you guys should agree. Right? Even Trump agreed with it when he was doing his last, open house, whatever the hell it was called. Just being honest with you, okay? But, what's the ending to that? Equity, social change. Wow.
And the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples. And when they occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out.
I don't like that. The bad apples thing, it's just so... The problem is like we didn't identify the bad apples. So like he's basically saying to an extent that like, in the Breonna Taylor case, those were the bad apples. Maybe. I don't really know that that's true. My issue is the fucking the laws in place. I don't even care about the race aspect. The laws in place that allow police officers to engage in a no-knock warrant. I don't care that they knocked, right? More because the laws that don't force police officers to wear body cams, because I've made this point before and I'll make it again. They didn't have to knock, fine. But when it comes to announcing yourself, only 1 of 12 of the witnesses interviewed said, yeah, they announced, which to me suggests one thing, and that is that really suggests or really begs the question: how long did they knock? How loud did they knock? Or rather, how long did they announce? How loud did they announce? That's the bigger problem. We have to destroy the systems in place, whether they're racist or not. They're wrong. And then the people who had made the warrant based on a false pretense, they should lose their job. Why not? Instead, we're scapegoating these police officers who were executing orders poorly. I think that they should have seen more consequences, but we didn't even get the judge. We didn't get the judge. We didn't get the cops that lied about the warrant, lied about the whole drug aspect of Breonna Taylor. They said like that the post office confirmed that there was drugs in the mail. Never happened. Wasn't confirmed. Because the post office said nope, we didn't do it, and their only argument was like, well, maybe it was someone else. Well, who? Come on.
They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable. And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, to the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it. But we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way,
it's not just accountability, man. Or rather, it's the right people need to be held accountable. It's the system that encourages police officers to do the wrong thing, and part of that is through police officers sticking to their own, even when they do something wrong. It's the system. Stop blaming cops on the ground. Start blaming the system that allows this shit to happen, because that's really what's happening. All right?
Violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is.
If you're going to make the argument that Trump encourages racism through the way that he speaks and what he does, then you need to make the same point that the people in charge of the police departments are the one that encourages this type of a culture. Okay? If Trump encourages a culture of racism, then so do police officers. It starts at the top and it works its way down.
Violence is never appropriate.
All right.
What is peaceful protest? When they...
And also, yeah, like, the police are mostly to themselves. There's really nothing the federal, government can necessarily do about the way the police runs.
run through the middle of a town and burn down your
Does Biden have a stutter? Well, I guess I'm ableist now.
stores and kill people all over the place.
That
and you
is
say
not
peaceful
peaceful.
protest.
President Trump,
No, it's
I'm not asking.
but you say it is.
President Trump, I'd like to continue with the issue of race. I promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order in a moment. This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of
What?
people...
How is racial sensitivity training racist?
were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane.
Who cares? I don't give a fuck if a cop complains about racial insensitivity training. I don't give a shit. A cop's like, I had to not beat a black guy. Like what's the cop complaining about? Having to go through more protocols? The cops complaining, the specific, whatever police officers that are bitching because they have to be policed in some manner. Because police officers, as much as I respect them, have this idea that they're our fucking bosses when they're supposed to be our protectors. I don't care if a police officer is complaining about having to take fucking racial sensitivity training.
That it was a radical revolution that was taking place.
What are you talking about?
In our military, in our schools, all over the place.
What's wrong with racial sensitivity training?
And you know it, and so does everybody else. And he would know.
What is radical about racial sensitivity?
Like, is there a specific thing about it that's radical? Tell us. Tell me the specific aspect of it that's so radical. I would like to know.
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal.
What?
And if you look at the people.
What did he just say?
You was totally
racial sensitivity.
Are you fucking stupid?
You were a certain person.
If you're a certain person, if you're a black person, for instance,
you had no status.
You have no status, right?
In life, it was sort of a reversal.
And you got it reversed. That's the fucking point. That's the whole point. That's the point of racial insensitivity training, is so that people who have a particular status of poverty or whatever fucking negative status that's associated with being black in life is to be reversed. That's what it's doing. That's what it's supposed to do. This is single-handedly the stupidest fucking thing Trump said the entire night, and nobody's giving shit. Nobody's giving him shit for it. Listen to what this is moronic. This is the most fucking moronic thing that he just said. He said that he just said that racial sensitivity training is bad because we shouldn't be sensitive to people of different races. That's what he said.
You were a certain person. You had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal.
Wow. God forbid we reversed racism. You're a fucking idiot. This is dumb. This was dumb. Come on.
And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and, frankly, very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's the racist.
You just don't know.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about this than he does.
Let him finish.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important to people know. They don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism in America.
President Trump, sir.
During the Obama-Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hate.
Yeah, man, there was tremendous division. And to be honest with you, that division wasn't because of them per se, rather than it was the fact that Obama was black. Listen. A lot of people liked Obama, and then they voted for him. And then he got in, and here's the reality that you guys need to understand, okay? The Great Recession massively sped up technology displacing jobs and driving down wages, okay? We were already we were trending downwards. And when that recession hit, a lot of companies were like, you know what, let's invest into technologies, okay? And people, basically, Obama wasn't able he couldn't recontextualize technology, right? Because nobody really understood the reasons why. He lightly spoke on it towards the end of his presidency. But the American people weren't ready for something like a universal basic income. right? And people basically like, well, you're black and I don't like you, okay? You even started to see it when he was running against McCain, to the point where McCain had to say like, hey, stop with the bullshit, right? This is a reality. And manufacturing jobs they're getting displaced by technologies. Yeah, manufacturing jobs, a lot of low labor jobs, right? That's just the problem. Jobs that are very, we'll say meticulous, very like, 1, 2, 1, 2, very, very easy to automate are jobs that are very routine, okay? So you have things like cashiers. You see it in stores all the time. You have all these cashiers that are getting their job. You go into a fucking Walmart, you got like anywhere from 4 to 8 self-service places with one person manning those. That's anywhere from 3 to 7 jobs gone. Boom, right off the bat. You have malls and stores closing because Amazon can cut out that middleman and they can go right from you to the door, right? Yeah, you're hiring truck drivers, but you'd hire a truck driver to drive goods to a mall anyway. You understand my point? So we have all these things. Manufacturing jobs. You're going to have like different robotics that are going to displace manufacturing jobs. You see things like Uber even that are basically replacing the taxi jobs, right? An app that allows people to just do part-time work. A lot of technologies are displacing jobs in a lot of ways. And it's a problem. Nobody's talking about it. But it's a problem, right?
You look at Ferguson, you go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
but
Lord.
The reason is that
ridiculous.
the Democrats that run these cities
ridiculous.
don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
and you
crime,
still haven't mentioned.
violent
Are you
crime.
in favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You following
Are you in
it and a little
favor
bit
of law and order? Go ahead,
Yes, I'm
say
in
it.
favor.
You
Everybody's
asked a
in favor
question,
of
let him finish.
Law and order.
Loses
Law and order.
Let him answer.
Law and order with justice, where
Christ.
people get treated fairly. And
Sure.
the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 17%, 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down much more than ours.
All right, we're now.
is president of
Mr.
the
President, you're going
United
to.
States of America.
Mr. President,
every record in the
Mr. President, you're going to be very happy because we're now going to talk about law and order.
places we had trouble were Democratic-run cities.
That's
and
exactly
cities
my
that were
question. There has been a dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer particularly, and you often blame that on Democratic mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth.
So, like, let's just be clear. The reason why there's a spike in murder and whatnot is, I would imagine, because of the coronavirus. People have their tensions up. They're fucking bored. See, that's the thing. We don't really acknowledge it, but basically, and this is the reason I blew up on TikTok, if we're going to be honest. People were bored. They were at home. They were angsty. They were riled up. It's the reason why there are so many people that were available to protest because they didn't have a fucking job. All right, tensions rose. The George Floyd situation was a tragedy that should have been talked about because it was absolutely an example of police brutality. But it never would have blew up to that degree if the coronavirus wasn't going on because people would be at work. Okay, and so tensions rose up and it increased issues. It increased like murder rates. It increased crime rates because people were going crazy. Right, and the second that people came back, the second that people came back to work, instantly tensions went down drastically. It's a reality.
So the question is this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You
I
can
don't.
bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200%. Crime. It is
cities.
crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does
There might be a little bit of an argument there.
that, it's over with. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way he would want to run it, we would run our
it
suburbs
the
would
way-
be gone. By the way,
Suburbs.
our suburbs would be gone. And
Why would our suburbs be gone? I'm very confused. Like, what the hell does that mean? What does the suburbs being gone mean? I just need clarification for what the fuck that means.
you would see problems like you've
He
never
would
seen.
know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs.
He would not.
So much
I was
better.
raised.
Go ahead.
I was-
Wait a minute.
I was
It's probably true. I mean, you think Trump even knows what the fuck a suburb is? The dude's rich. Come on.
raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles on racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice and or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do anything.
The problem I need to ask you right here, though, well, what Biden, like, honestly, what could you do about bringing football back to the suburbs?
That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing. First of all, what does reimagining policing
what is reimagining policing
mean? And do you support?
It means.
Let me, if I might finish the question. What is reimagining policing?
Christopher Walsh is just getting snippy. He's like, we're an hour in, and I'm just tired of it. I'm just tired of it, guys.
I mean, and do you support the Black Lives Matter call for community control of policing?
Look. What I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the police offices. As a matter of fact, police, local police, the only one defunding in his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use force and be able to talk people down. We have to have community policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people.
That's fair. Those are fair assessments. I mean, this is actually a good take, right? Because I think the biggest issue with the defund of the police narrative is that it's like, take police funding from the police here, put it into social services, put it into this, put it into that. And while that is not an inherently bad idea from the perspective of increasing monies into social work and whatnot, it is a bad idea in the sense that, you know, it's not going to be instant. It's not going to be an instantaneous reduction in these issues, right? It's really not going to help as much as we think. And we need policing. So investing more into certain areas is great. It's not a bad idea to go with.
In the communities. That's when crime went down. It didn't go.
And police relations with the communities is a great idea. People really undersell that, but it is a great idea. Like, honestly, you know, police officers simply knowing communities and people in communities will reduce tensions. Like, in the same way where, like, you guys are less likely to, like, do something wrong with a friend, right? So, like, you know, you're less likely to shit on a friend than a person, right? You care more about your people, your friends. You know, if the police officers were more friendly with the community, sure, you can make an argument. It's like, oh, the police may not want to arrest this person for this. Sure. But then it turns the other way, too. The people will be less likely to not only commit crimes, but also to antagonize police officers.
Go up, it went down.
There needs to be community interactions.
And so we have to be engaged.
That's not what they're talking about, Chris. That's not what they're talking about. He's talking about defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any law support.
Look,
he has no law enforcement support.
That's not true.
Almost nothing.
Honestly, who cares if he has law enforcement support, specifically when it comes to... Because, I mean, if the issue here is, like, if Biden really is saying, like, hey, we need to, you know, let's just say recontextualize the police. Yeah, we do. And then, like, Trump's like, hi, but he has no support. It's like, yeah, usually people who you kind of want to, you know, reprimand aren't like, I love this guy. I love this guy for saying that we need to do better. No, they're not. That's the reality.
Look.
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go ahead. Think. We have time.
We don't have time to do anything.
He could have just been like, this person. He could have said, Trump's just antagonized the shit out of him.
All right. Name one law enforcement group that came out and supported
gentlemen,
you.
I think I'm going to take back the moderator's role,
I don't think there are any.
And I want to get to another subject, which is the issue of protests in many cities that have turned violent. In Portland, Oregon, especially, we had more than 100 straight days of protests. Which I think
yeah, Biden looks like he's going to cry soon. Oh, dude, look at this. Joe Robe. Do better.
Where you talk about peaceful protests, many of those turned into riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit...
I know a lot of people are sitting here like, oh, you know, Wallace, you know, he bailed Biden out. I would encourage you guys to try, like, you have to understand, like, Trump is being more antagonistic the entire time, and Wallace is trying to maintain control. So the fact that he is reprimanding Wallace more is directly in response to Trump being more obnoxious. He is reprimanding Biden to an extent, right? Because Biden is, but it's less because Biden is giving him less to reprimand for. So I would encourage you to not dismiss Trump's wrongdoings by trying to make it seem like there's a bias here, and there might be. But it's not as big as you want it to seem, I would say. Okay, it's fine that you're a Trump supporter, but like, come on, like at a certain point, we need to look at this and go, this is a fucking train wreck. And at best, if you're still supporting Trump, it's because Biden is just really shitty too. Honestly, though, you know, it's bad. It's bad. And I would try to remove this whole idea of bias from your mind, because in the way that you feel Christopher Wallace's bias, I would say you're being biased towards Trump, right? Because Christopher Wallace, yeah, he's a Democrat who works for Fox News. You know why? Because he's actually one of the best reporters, like, ever. He's fantastic. He is. He really is. He tries to be as unbiased as possible. The issue in news nowadays isn't bias. It's really forcing that bias, right? What news should be is hearing a story, providing unbiased facts, and then giving your opinions on that fact. It's not your interpretations, but your opinion, right? You give your progressive opinion on the facts. You give your conservative opinion on the facts. Christopher Wallace does that. Fox News in general does not do that. CNN in general does not do that. That's how it's supposed to operate. So just wanted you guys to understand that.
Crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is, as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you stop the days and months of violence in Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president. I've made it clear. I've made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted, and anyone who commits it
but
should be prosecuted.
But you've never called for the people, the leader. Excuse me, sir. You have never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to bring in the National Guard and knock off 100 days of riots.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way. Look here.
Really?
That's not true. Portland's a fucking mess, man. It was a mess. It's a mess. It has nothing to do with the police. Honestly, like, the mayor is very concerned with getting reelected. He knows the people hate him, so he stays out of the way. Okay, the police are ordered to not get very much involved when, like, Antifa, I know it's a loose organization, but, you know, people who identify as Antifa start doing shitty things. Honestly.
Here's the thing.
I sent in the U.S. Marshals to get the killer of the young man in the middle of the street. They shot him, and for 3 days,
President Trump,
Portland wouldn't do anything. I had to send in the U.S. Marshals. They took care of business.
Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, you know, his own former spokesperson said, you know, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said that.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she.
Doesn't sound too convinced with that. Is that true? I don't know if it's true, but didn't sound very convinced. Is that the first name he thought? He's like, Kellyanne Conway? I know you guys are going to say, oh, he has a stutter. That wasn't a stutter. That was a brain fart.
She said that. And so here's the, here's the
Did
point.
she say it?
The
I don't
point is
know
that
if she said it.
that's what he keeps trying to rile everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down. Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody
together. Did she say it? Did she say that?
How to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly, and every single solitary time.
And
it is true? Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
To end this, button up this segment, I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly criticized.
I have to answer his statement.
No, you have repeatedly.
Wait,
you have
no,
you've been talking back
and forth.
You made a statement. I'm asking you.
I would love to end it.
Sir.
I would love to end it.
You know, if you want to switch seats.
We could very quickly.
We could do that, but
send in the National Guard. It would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay,
but they don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the Vice President for not specifically calling out.
I very much feel bad for Christopher Wallace.
Antifa and other left-wing extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm
prepared to specifically
do it?
Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
Do you want to call them? What do you want to call them? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
who would
right
you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud Boys. Stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what.
No, this isn't
Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem.
That is one of the worst. That's probably that right there should kind of like tell you guys a lot, because that was bad. That was bad. That was really bad. Okay. Right? What Trump, he's saying, well, the left wing is worse. Fine. I don't care if that's your perspective, that the left wing was worse. But you were asked to specifically condemn white supremacy, and you simply told the Proud Boys to stand back and step aside. That's not condemning people. Okay? That's what you do at a fucking airport or at a subway station when you're a little too over the line. Yeah, just stand back, step aside, sir. Okay? That's not condemning. There's no way that anyone on either side could justify that. Honestly, right? I don't understand why the fuck he didn't do it, because he's done it before. He's condemned white supremacy before. So I don't know what it is. Is it because we're close to an election and now he feels like the only thing he has left are racists? Because that's not a good thing, right? If all you have are racists. It's one thing for people to misinterpret what you're saying. But like, the one time that you had to be like, I don't like white supremacists and racists, you threw it. You blew it. You fucked up. This was gross. It was bad. It was gross. Honestly. And then you couple that with this thing that he said before, where he's like, they were black people. They were they had a low status, and we reversed the status. Reverse the status. It doesn't sit right with me. Maybe he feels like, I don't know. It's just unjustifiable. It's disgusting. This is like the worst part. That nobody took a bigger L than Trump took right here. So it's gross.
FBI director.
This is a left-wing problem.
Who cares if it's a left-wing problem? You could have said, hey, I denounce white supremacy, but right now the bigger issue is left-wing whatever, fucking Antifa. I don't care. Denounce white supremacy.
White supremacist. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got it.
Not militia. That's what his FBI FBI director said.
Well, then you know what?
No, we're done, sir. We're moving on to the next. We're moving.
That's not an idea.
Everybody in your administration tells you the truth has a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no ideas.
Antifa is a dangerous,
all right,
radical
gentlemen,
group.
we're now moving on to the...
Fine, even if that's true, who cares? Even if Antifa is a dangerous radical group. And you know what? Maybe it is. You were asked to condemn white supremacy. And you were very reluctant. Not only were you reluctant to do it, but you flat out didn't. It's gross. Honestly. It's gross.
The Trump and Biden records.
They'll overthrow you.
When a president, I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term, it is generally a referendum on his record. But Vice President Biden, you like to quote one of your dad's sayings, which is, don't compare me to the Almighty, compare me to the alternative. And in this case, sir, you are the alternative.
Can we just listen, basically break down what he said? It's like, don't compare me to the Almighty, compare me to the alternative. What he's saying there is, hey, I know I'm shit, but I'm better than this shit. That's what Biden is running on. Biden is running on the fact that he knows he sucks, but Trump sucks more. So pick me. Great slogan. Great slogan. By the way, Cutter, you keep saying like he was specifically told to denounce white supremacy, and he said step aside, Proud Boys. It's not enough. All right, that's what he was asked to say. He was asked to denounce white supremacy, and he didn't.
Looking at both of your records, I'm going to ask each of you, why should voters elect you?
You want me to go back to when Chris said it again? Okay. We got what do we got? 110:51. I'll go back to the specific thing for you guys.
Groups, but aren't
Let's go back.
specifically calling. You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn
Boom, right there. Are you willing to condemn white supremacy?
white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha?
Condemn and tell them to stand aside. Condemn. Standing aside isn't condemning enough. It's not enough.
And as we've seen,
Okay? It's not enough. It's not enough, guys. And he said just stand by, stand aside. Not great. It's not great. Not enough.
ask each of you, why should voters elect you president over your opponent? In this segment, President Trump, you go first, 2 minutes.
Because there has never been an administration or president.
He said sure. Okay. When it comes to condemning racism, the word sure and stand by aren't enough. You got to be more. You got to be more aggressive than that. This racism shouldn't be a party issue. Hey, this is you know, you guys are giving him too much of the benefit of the doubt on the way that he spoke about it. Okay, honestly.
Who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite going through all of these things, where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, there has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going.
I mean, listen, let's just quickly talk about it, okay? The whole impeachment debacle. Let's be very clear about what the facts are. It's very much a fact that Trump did withhold funding from the Ukraine until they investigated Joe Biden. I believe that was, yeah, right. And Trump didn't give a shit about Joe Biden up until Joe Biden said, I'm going to announce to run. Very suspicious, very much trying to investigate a political partner. You could be upset by it, right? The best Republicans who defended against the impeachment were saying, listen, we know he did it, and there were Republicans saying it. We know he did it, but we don't think it's impeachable. I may disagree. Fair analysis. You know what? You want to know why you never saw any fucking Republicans saying that on the news? Because at the same time, Trump made fun of fucking Bloomberg for being short, and that was more entertaining than hearing literal facts or literal arguments from Republicans. Right? CNN would be the one to push that, but they don't fucking care because it's more entertaining to have a fucking 5-hour analysis on how short somebody is than it is to bring forth a solid perspective of, hey, listen, what he did was wrong, but it was like more of a mistake and it's not impeachable. Fine. I don't agree, but fine. At least it's a decent perspective. We got this shit.
By the way, there was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling and they were saying, it's time maybe, and then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other...
Space Force? Listen, listen, the Space Force thing might be an okay idea. It's... But listen, the military didn't exactly want all the money you gave them. Okay, we need to upgrade cybersecurity. Yeah, that's what we need to do. We need more cybersecurity. We're fucking failing at that. We're one of the 3 superpowers. We are the worst with cybersecurity. And you decided to buy fucking tanks and airplanes. Who cares? You know how much money it's going to cost in maintenance for those things over the next forever, their entire lifetime? It's egregious. It's not necessary. We didn't need it. Okay? Jesus Christ. The Space Force, though, sounds kind of interesting.
Things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care.
That's not true. Okay, so what he's referring to is like the poor way that it was handled, where like the deaths were processed incorrectly. It was a bizarre thing, but like that number is not correct.
It was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices.
It's crazy that, like, and let's be honest here, even if you're a Trump supporter, Trump is at best the best of a bad situation, right? He's really not a great president. I don't think so, okay? But he got like a ton of power, bro. They like 3 judges, like hundreds, I think a couple hundred fucking 3 Supreme Court seats, a couple hundred judges. Insane. Insane how much he got.
That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like, you just don't do that.
Trump is so, like, bro, you're so fucking stupid. Because before he's like, if you had the power, you would delay as many seats as possible, Biden, right? That's the argument he made as to why he should get the Supreme Court nomination. He was right. Now, all of a sudden, Trump forgets that fucking Republicans stopped them from putting people in those seats. If you're what are you doing? What are you saying? You just blamed them for something Republicans did. So if you're saying that leaving those seats open was a failure on their part, then you're acknowledging that Republicans failed. That's literally what you just did. You're an idiot. But let's see, Biden probably is going to flop around like a fish and not know how to respond.
Left 128 openings.
Or maybe he will.
And
hopefully he does.
If I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president. You can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us almost...
Just respond.
It'll probably be above that number by the end of this term. 300 judges. It's a record.
Looking at both your records...
Why didn't Biden contest that?
Why should voters elect you president?
He's sleeping?
As opposed to President Trump. You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker.
Respond! Be like, Republicans didn't let us put people in there. This is an easy response.
Sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent. When I was vice president, we inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused the recession.
You left him a solid economy. He didn't cause the... Again, he didn't cause the recession. Again, you could make the argument that he could have done it better. I think so, too. Too aggressive about... Not aggressive enough about shutting down. Too aggressive about opening back up. For sure. This would have happened regardless, though, to an extent. And that extent wouldn't have been mass. It wouldn't have been like, oh, only a third. No, it would have been very close to what it was, regardless of how well an individual ran it. Let's just be fucking honest here. So, like, this is a very, very disingenuous statement to make.
With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone head-to-head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got $3.5 million.
By the way,
Mr.
my son...
Wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word. Can you add back,
no, I'm not asking.
Look at how taken back Joe Biden. See, like, so, like, if you saw that, like, Christopher Wallace is like, he's like admonishing both of them, and like you see Trump's like, I don't care. Trump's like the bad kid. Oh, but Biden got like a little afraid. Like, watch it. Just watch it.
Okay,
he went.
He never keeps his word. Can you add back,
no, I'm not.
Look at that. He got so upset. It's just funny. It's such like how upset he got.
Oh, my God.
Question. Can you add back 30 seconds?
Yeah, yes, okay. You may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more.
It's weird that you said $300 billion at first. Again, let's talk about how like it's because companies like Amazon were like the only ones that could truly provide a service, especially with people being upset or like, you know, afraid to go out and go to supermarkets. It's there. The issue isn't how much money Amazon and other companies made per se. It's them not paying fucking taxes. And you really are a contributor to tax loopholes that they were allowed to take advantage of. So let's just keep that in mind, dog.
Just since COVID, you in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers, my son was in Iraq.
I mean, let's not forget the way that Trump treated John McCain. He basically made fun of him for being a prisoner of war. So goes to show you, man. You know,
he spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was.
This is so forced. You can see that Biden's forcing this.
A patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking about Hunter? Are you talking about Hunter?
I'm talking about my son, Beau Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know Beau. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
God. This is a shit show.
Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He wasn't dishonorably.
Cocaine use, and he didn't have a job until you became vice president. Once you became vice president, he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
that is simply
and various
not
other places.
True.
He made a fortune.
My son,
and he didn't have a job.
My son, like a lot of people we know at home, had a drug problem.
I like how he's like, it's not true, and then like now you're saying it is true. So you should have said like, yeah, you're right, but you know what? He had a drug problem. Listen, people out there that are like, yeah, fuck you, Joe Biden, drug problem, blah 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 blah. If you're gonna be empathetic towards people who are drug addicts on the ground, like right now that aren't rich, you still have to maintain a level of empathy for ones that are. Just saying.
He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it, and I'm proud of him.
But why was he given tens of millions of dollars?
But he wasn't given tens of millions of dollars. That is totally.
It seems like that's not substantiated. There was a claim from Senate Republicans that he received a lot of money, not substantiated. Maybe it will be, maybe it won't be. I tend to think it probably won't be, but I might be wrong. Just saying. I believe was it fully debunked? Maybe it was fully debunked. So I believe the article itself, the Senate Republican report brought up some kind of like suggestive evidence that this happened, but then like they didn't really talk about it at all. They left it out of the report of all the ways in which they could have been relieved from it, right? For proven that they didn't do that, something like that. Is my understanding. I don't think it was true.
Totally.
Everything's a mess.
President Trump, we've already been
totally discredited.
We've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial subjects. Well, you know.
So do I. He keeps bringing it up. Shut the fuck up.
As the moderator, sir, I'm going to make a judgment call here.
$3.5 million.
Okay.
Again, I feel so bad for Christopher Wallace, but like, dude, this guy, like, the news stations love it. Wallace doesn't, but like, shut their fucking mics off. If you really care, shut their mics off. But they like the entertainment value.
From the mayor of Moscow.
Let's talk about not true. Gentlemen, that report is totally discredited. Mitt Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money, that report. It was written for political reasons.
You know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay. The forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres. They have displaced hundreds of thousands of people. When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think the science knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord.
Just on the climate accord, you guys have to understand, because people are like, well, we pulled out and now we're leading the world and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. Listen, you guys have to understand a couple things. One, the Paris Climate Accord wasn't for us. It was to help other people, reduce their emissions. But also, pulling out of a deal makes our word look bad, okay? Pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord made us look bad as a country and the way that we deal with foreign relations. Same thing with the nuclear deal with Iran. You might have liked it. You may not have liked the pretenses that these things happened on, but the reality is that It's not always about us. It's about our fucking word as a country. And if people in other countries don't believe in our word or don't feel like it has a strength to it, then we're nothing. Okay? Yeah, we're a strong country, but a lot of that strength comes from our allies and our word. Our word is a big deal. And Trump has diminished that word when it comes to foreign relations. And that's the reality of the situation. Okay?
You have rolled back a number of Obama environmental records. What do you believe about the science of climate change, and what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful.
That's nice. You want crystal clean? Oh, I want it. Everybody wants that. You're not making an announcement. That's not a stance on climate change. That's a stance on common sense.
Clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally.
Sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I'm laughing so hard, okay? Yeah, I'm going to tell you why that's so funny to me, okay? Guys, the country was shut down for like 4 fucking months. Of course you're going to have the lowest carbon emissions. Of course you're going to have the lowest emissions. There's nothing open. Come on. It's stupid. That's like if he was like, guys, we've had the lowest number of school shootings because kids aren't in school. Yeah, we did it. Come on. Honestly, ridiculous. Ridiculous claim.
But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of
It's so stupid.
If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else.
That's true. Listen, there's an issue with forest management, California specifically. 100% true. I agree with him there. There's an issue apparently with like their electrical grid, stuff like that. But just be like, yeah, those are an issue on top of climate change because climate change is a problem. I'm just saying.
The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you
You've got to have cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting.
That's not an answer. Everyone would say that. We need good air and water. Well, does that, like, just take a stance? You wouldn't take a stance against white supremacy before, and now you won't take a stance for like emissions now. Like, you could say, like, hey, listen, I don't like how aggressive the Green New Deal is. This is what I would say. I don't like how aggressive the Green New Deal is, but we should get tax incentives for, you know, cleaner sources, and we need to pressure China, India to be better with their pollutions because they are the ones that are, you know, substantially more involved in the amount of emissions that they put off. That's a stance to take. That's a stance that says, like, hey, listen, we shouldn't be the ones that are solely responsible for bettering the world from a climate change perspective. But they're not saying that. He's like, I like clean air. Poggers.
A billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very...
This is a Mr. Beast to a Pornhub. Billion trees, guys. Every time you look at one of our videos, you're going to plant a tree.
Do you believe that human pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global warming of this planet?
I think a lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. I think to an extent,
well,
yes. But I also
to an extent. Listen, just for anybody out there that doesn't believe in climate change, I just want to be like, I want to just bring up this point. Please listen to this one thing. A lot of people are like, oh, you know, it's like climate change isn't real, blah, 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 blah. Most people do agree that it's real. The majority of people, regardless of which side you're on. I ask you this one question, okay? Would you sit in your car with the exhaust connected to the inside of your car? No. Maybe you would, but then you're an idiot, okay? You would die because it's not good for you. Stop saying yes, okay? It's not good for you, okay? If it's bad for you, common sense dictates that it's bad for the environment. Right? Very simple. It's very simple, guys. Okay? Yeah. Honestly, I feel like if you're uncertain, that should be enough.
we have to do better management of our forests. Every
That's
year,
true, though.
I
You do
get
need
the
better
call,
management.
California's burning. California's burning. If that was cleaned, if you had forest management, good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls. You know, in Europe, they have forest cities. They're called forest cities. They maintain their forests.
Listen, like, that's true. You do need maintenance, 100%. But he's going to talk about Europe. Bro, Europe is so much more temperamental than the United States that it's, like, irrelevant. Come on.
They manage their forests. I was with
Like, their temperatures. Temperamental is what I meant to say.
the head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There should
Well, yeah, but the issue isn't how fast the trees ignite. The issue is what's provided to cause them to ignite. And in the United States, we do have an issue with, like, too much brush and whatnot on the floor. But we also have an issue with the climate as well that ignites the poorly managed fires, forests, right?
shouldn't be that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, at some point,
Somebody's like, if only there was someone in power that could facilitate better forest management. Honestly, it's a state thing, so like the state would have to do it. So, California takes an L to an extent on this issue.
you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of
To have the National Guard go to those forests and just with a broom, just sweep them up and put them in a little pail, dump them in a hole, and light it on fire.
acres of land just burned to the ground.
But, sir,
That's burning down because of a lack of
But,
management.
sir, if you believe...
That's what we needed, right? We got all this money for new tanks and shit. We needed military vacuum cleaners to just suck up stuff on the ground, right? Right? I'm not wrong. Could have done it. We could have done that. But we didn't.
believe in the science
But we should have.
of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy?
So my understanding is that a lot of those things never really even implemented because they were blocked by Congress. So like he rolled them back because I would assume he thought that they were going to be bad, but there really isn't enough validity to the idea that he did it because they had a negative impact, because a lot of them weren't implemented.
Standards that are going to create more pollution from cars
Well,
and
not
trucks.
really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car, and you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars.
Wait, so listen. This is the most craziest asinine logic that kind of makes a little bit of sense that Trump has ever said. It's insane. Because, okay, well, I'm going to explain to you what Trump is saying. Trump is saying that if cars are cheaper, if cars that pollute, they're cheaper now, right? Instead of being more expensive due to being taxed, people will be more likely to buy them in favor of the old cars that they had that are less fuel efficient. That's what he's saying, and it kind of makes sense. It's just ridiculous. This kind of makes sense, but I just don't think that like the practice of this idea will work, because people, a better way to get people to buy things would be better wealth redistribution. Honestly, okay? That's the point. That's just my opinion, right?
Have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by
But
$3,500.
in the case of California, they've simply
No,
ignored
but you would take
your
a lot of cars
roadmap.
off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. The car has gotten
It's like the best logic he's ever come up with, but it's insane, honestly.
so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit of gasoline. And and I'm okay with electric cars too. I think I'm all for electric cars.
All I'm gonna say about the electric car thing is that Trump is not okay with basically, like, I think it was subsidies for companies that produce electric cars. So kind of nay-naying yourself there, Trumpster.
I've given big incentives for electric cars, but what they've done in California is just crazy.
Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a
Those
lot.
sound reasonable, specifically the 2050 goal. Again, China, India, countries like that need to take more responsibility in the amount of pollution that they put up.
A lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one. Number two, if in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America.
It's true. You know, it's something just for context. I don't exactly know how he did that, but what I will say is the reason that oil and gas is so cheap in the United States is because of a massive, I think upwards of $500 billion a year. I might be wrong on that figure. Subsidies that the United States government gives oil companies. And I understand why, but we're going to subsidize something. Why the fuck isn't it electricity? Honestly, I'm just saying. Guys.
No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations in all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy that, in fact, is going to provide for the ability us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they, in fact...
You know, not for nothing, but like, why the fuck should we honestly subsidize oil? Like, listen, no, like, I mean, like, listen, somebody made a joke, it's like, no subsidies, Papa, and it was like, it made me laugh, but then I'm like, wait a minute, but like, why? Because here's my thing, right? Let's collect the revenue, okay? Let's collect the revenue, and then we can invest the money we collected from oil increases. Get this, guys, are you ready? Into universal basic income. Huh? Will gas be more expensive? Maybe. Okay, maybe. Let's say you spend $50 a week, now you're spending $70. It's a lot more, okay? Let's say you go from $50 to even $80. $30 a week, $120 a month. You're getting $1,000 though. Come on. Honestly though, I think we figured it out. Guys. Okay? Huh? I'm just saying. I know gas will be more expensive. I'm including that. I'm just saying. You pay an extra $100 a month in gas, you get $1,000. Sounds good to me. I'll take it. I cracked the code. I'm just saying, guys. It's something to think about. Although there is also oil in your house. But, okay, you know, you get my point. Something. We're thinking about it, right? Because then oil prices in your house will go up. I don't know, the expensive oil in a house per se. We could probably figure it out. But you get it. Get what I'm saying, guys? Not a terrible idea. Okay? Something to think about.
In fact, are weatherized in a way that, in fact, they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not only not costing people jobs, creating millions of good-paying jobs, not $15 an hour, but prevailing wage.
$15 an hour is not bad, like in most areas in the United States. I'm just saying.
By having a new infrastructure that, in fact, is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord. I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart. And talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line?
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, make sure that he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem.
All I'm saying, guys, is this is an argument for vegans, all right? If we had less cows, they'd be farting less. It's actually a real thing. Maybe we should be vegan. Huh? I'm just saying.
Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is the guy who says that, well, the fact that it's all true. And here's the deal.
He's talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to rip down buildings.
I don't think that Biden, there's multiple versions of the Green New Deal. Like that's probably Sanders's version of it, which is intense, but not really everyone's standard, right? I don't think that's Biden's. Biden is not nearly as progressive as Sanders or the trajectory that the fucking Democratic Party's on.
Then you can go.
And rebuild the building.
No,
it's the dumbest, most ridiculous, where airplanes are out of business, where two-car systems are out, where they want to take out the cows, too. You know, that's not true either, right?
This
is a $100 trillion.
Look,
that's more money than our country could make in 100 years if we're going to
the case.
All I'm saying is we have a $20 trillion economy. So we collect about $3 trillion a year in taxes. 33 years, a little off Trump, but it's still rather insane.
All right, let me because I actually, wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy-efficient homes. So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good-paying jobs.
Let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$100 billion.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good-paying jobs, and these tax incentives for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes. By the way, he has an
That's fair. There's a fair argument. We're paying a lot to deal with these weather problems.
answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that.
That's
at all.
he did say.
You made it up.
Did he say that? I don't know if he said a nuclear weapon, but I feel like I remember him talking about dropping like a fucking... Was it really? Did he say a nuclear weapon? I thought I heard him say something about a missile. Did he really say that? Wait, but listen. Hold on. Listen. All I'm saying, maybe not a nuke. That would be ridiculous. But think about it. Why don't we have the ability to, let's say, for instance, like hurricane, that's like high winds. It's like a giant, there's a center, an eye of the hurricane. Maybe we could shoot a missile at it. A weather missile, no? Maybe. Okay? Just got to build what? Maybe that's why Trump put so much money in the military. Weather missiles. We don't know. Maybe that's part of the Space Force. Shoot a missile right into the... Yeah, I saw he said a nuke, all right? Might work. Nobody thought of it. Sounds crazy. You never know, okay?
And here's the deal.
You make up a
we are going to be in a position where...
How much would those missile cost? I don't know. Hopefully less than the damage of a hurricane. But human lives, man. So, you know.
We can create hard, good jobs by making sure the environment is clean and we all are in better shape. We spend billions of dollars now. Billions of dollars on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's happened just in the Midwest.
Here's the problem, Mr. Biden. Okay? Who cares about rising seas? If the seas start to rise, you just sell your houses and move. Based Ben Shapiro. Because I'd buy the house. I'm going to sell my house that's going to be flooded to someone else who's like, I totally want that flooded house.
West with these storms that come through and wipe out entire sections and counties in Iowa. They didn't happen before. They're because of global warming. We make up 15% of the world's problem. We, in fact, but the rest of the world, we've got to get them to come along. That's why we have to get back into the Paris Accord.
All right, gentlemen.
Wait a minute, Chris. So why didn't he do it for 47 years? You were vice president.
What the fuck? Like, listen, I'm all for the 47-year argument that Biden sucked. But, like, his presidency did do that, though, right? Or his Obama's presidency that he's associated with, right? They implemented the Paris Climate Accord. So, I'm just saying, you know, can't always bring it to that.
President, why didn't you get the world? China sends up real dirt into the air. Russia does, India does, they all do. We're supposed to be good. And by the way, he made a couple of statements. The Green New Deal is $100 trillion.
That is not my plan.
That's
the Green New.
Well, he didn't say it was 20 billion. Okay, he said that we should be pooling money together to get people to get them to stop destroying the rainforests. That's what he said. Okay, he didn't say the Green New Deal would cost 20 billion. He said that's how much money it would take to get them to stop destroying the forests. Okay, he wasn't clear about how much his Green New Deal would cost. I'm just saying.
Rebuild every
is
building.
not my plan.
I want to rebuild every.
If he knew anything about, if he knew anything
He made a
about,
statement about the military. He said I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
That is
what
not
he
true.
did is
You're
he
done in
said
this segment.
he called
Mr.
the military
Mr. Vice President,
stupid bastards.
I
and he
did
said
not
it on
say
tape.
that.
He said.
My understanding is he said it, but it was like out of context. He was just making like a lighthearted joke. Like, Biden, apparently Biden thought that like he was gonna like get a lot of applause when he was like with a meeting with a bunch of military members, and it just fucking missed. It flopped. It was like the worst. He just got shit on for it. But then again, let's keep in mind, Trump made fun of John McCain for being a prisoner of war. So I think that person, people who say that prisoners of war are losers, are worse than someone who's like, you stupid bastards, whatever. Just saying.
Stupid bastards.
Please,
He said
sir,
it.
stop.
I would never say that.
play it.
Stop.
Thank you, mate.
Go ahead.
You're
Mr.
on
Vice
tape.
President answered his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all his rantings.
I'm having a little trouble myself, but
I think that's the point where like people are like, "Oh, Christopher Wallace is being biased because he laughed at like a little joke that Biden made." But keep in mind, earlier Wallace laughed when I forgot what Trump said. Trump like had a zinger before, and Wallace. Oh, it was when we're talking about, or they were talking about the amount of people who were showing up to their rallies, and Biden was like, "Yeah, it's because of COVID, and I'm trying to be responsible." And Trump's like, "No, it's because nobody would show up," and he did laugh. Just saying. So he laughed at both.
and about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the idea of what your environmental changes will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. We're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
So do you
We're going to
support
build
the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
Do you support that?
No, I don't support the Green New Deal.
You don't.
What the fuck? Wait, so this is what just happened in 5 seconds. We went from the Green New Deal is going to be a great for American infrastructure, it's going to create jobs, and then Wallace is like, "Wait, do you support the Green New Deal?" And he's like, "Me? Not me." What the fuck? How did you get to that conclusion?
Oh, well, that's a big statement.
I
That
support
means you
the
just
bloc.
lost the radical left.
I love how like Trump's trying to make it seem like he's like, "You lost the radical left now." It's like not for nothing, but it doesn't matter what Biden says. The radical left is going to vote for Biden over you, Trump. Although maybe they just won't vote. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Support the Biden plan that I put forward.
You keep calling it the Green New Deal. You're insane.
The Biden plan, which is different than what he calls the radical Green New Deal.
All right, gentlemen, final segment.
Thank
Election
God.
integrity. As we meet tonight, millions of Americans are receiving mail-in ballots or going to vote early. How confident should we be that this will be a fair election? And what are you prepared to do over the next 5 plus weeks, because it'll not only be to Election Day, but also counting some ballots, mail-in ballots after Election Day. What are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election? In this final segment, Mr. Vice President, you go first.
Prepared to let people vote. They should go to iwillvote.com, decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote.
I understand why we're having different measures to vote right now because of coronavirus, but it is uncomfortable. Mail-in voting is uncomfortable, and so is electronic voting, because they are much more open to like tampering than normal voting stations. And like, I understand the idea of bringing up a technology, like catching up with technology. I understand that there are people in poor areas who would have better access if it was done online, but like, I really do worry about the integrity of the election because they can be tampered with. And my thing is like, again, not like mail-in voting and electronic voting outside of the coronavirus is more of an excuse, in my opinion. It's more of a band-aid on poverty. It's like, well, we have poor people who can't get to the polling stations. Let's just bring the polling stations to them. I get it, but like, it's because they're fucking poor, and like, they don't need to be poor. Could redistribute wealth better. I'm just saying. So it always comes back to fucking UBI, boy.
Homeland Security Director, and as well as the FBI Director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating.
I don't think that's true. I mean, like, there was just, I think that, and I think they bring it up a little bit later, but like, they had mentioned, you know, there was a bunch of votes found in the dish. Apparently there was like a postal worker who was charged with like, you know, basically throwing out ballots, and a lot of them were Trump ballots. You know, does it show a mass array that would have a massive impact? No, I don't think so. But it does show that there can be tampering, and it does show that, like, what tampering have we not found yet? I'm just saying.
They said that. The fact is that there are going to be millions of people because of COVID that are going to be voting by mail-in ballots, like he does, by the way. He sits behind the Resolute desk and sends his ballot to Florida, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote, because enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting, because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you, because he cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this election. And in terms of whether or not, when the votes are counted, and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter, because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over.
I know he's talking about where Trump like suggested that like he wasn't going to leave if he got voted out. I'm not entirely sure if like, I don't know that he necessarily meant that. I think people are being a little exaggeratory with that, but you know.
Going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years.
Control?
Is it going to change? You're going to get 4 more years of these lies.
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So
that was a decent speech. I feel like he could have gotten a nice round for that one.
when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at Crooked Hillary,
simply put, maybe Trump just doesn't understand what the word transition means.
Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won and even before I won.
Listen, I'm just going to say this. I know a lot of you guys might disagree, but, you know, there were reasons to be cautious of Donald Trump, okay? I'm just saying, right? Well, we all say, like, oh, the Russian collusion never existed. Listen, he even admitted that, like, his son was meeting with, like, Russian lawyers, and at first it never happened. Then it was they were talking about an adoption program. Then it was like, yeah, we were trying to get dirt on Hillary Clinton. Right? I understand the suspicion. I'm just saying, okay? So Trump, you know, come on. Come on, guys.
From the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady, they were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act.
And someone's like, hey, check Trump's emails. It's funny because like Ivanka was doing the same thing is doing the same thing that Hillary did. So like maybe we should.
Against General Flynn. You better take a look at that because we caught you in a sense. And President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that.
What?
If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area.
So like, for sure, I get it.
Sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other
I'm just saying, man, like, nah, like, I mean, like, listen, there's definitely cause for, like, something, but it feels a little bit more like Trump is trying to set up for the idea of a fraudulent election if he loses than he is actually legitimately concerned about voter fraud. That is my take. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm just saying.
other thing, it's nice on November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud, and it's a
what? Wait, what was this argument? I'm so confused.
And can you imagine where they say you have?
Oh, is he saying that they're losing like 30 to 40% of the ballots? It's not true. I mean, I think that best the argument is that there was a play. I don't remember exactly where it was. I looked at the fact checking. He made that claim, and there are areas that like are dismissing up to 30% of ballots because they're invalid ballots in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't mean that they're whether they're like double votes or whatever. So, come on.
You have to have your ballot in by November 10th. November 10th. That means that's 7 days after the election, in theory, should have been announced.
Okay.
We have major states with that,
sir,
all run by Democrats.
Who cares? Who cares if it's going to take a little while longer? Just fucking cares. It's like, I want to know sooner than later. It's like, I don't understand it.
2 minutes.
All run by Democrats. It's
President Trump,
it's a rigged election.
You're going to be able to continue. You have been charging for months that mail-in balloting is going to be a disaster. You say it's rigged, that it's going to lead to fraud. But in 2018, in the last midterm election, 31 million people voted mail-in voting. That was a quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it? And are you counting on the Supreme Court, including a Justice Barrett, to settle any dispute?
Yeah,
it's weird that like the way that Wallace phrased that, because it sounded like he's like, yeah, you speak about how you don't like mail-in voting, but a lot of people did it. And it's like, that's not really an argument. He's not saying that a lot of people didn't do it. He's just saying he doesn't like how it's open to fraud. He's exaggerating the level of fraud that is associated with it. But,
I think I'm counting on them to look at the ballots, definitely. I hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so. Because what's happening is incredible. I read today, where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them, we don't like them, we don't like them.
Okay, now he's just intentionally misrepresenting the facts. He's like 1% of them were invalidated. Invalidated doesn't mean thrown away. It means that they're invalid for some reason. Okay, it's very different. Just saying.
But what are you going to do about it if there are a million?
And if his issue is with the invalidation of mail-in voting, then you should be for, or rather against, a lot of these Republican areas who are trying to make it difficult for poor people to vote because they know they're going to vote Democrat, so they're invalidating their votes by forcing them to have particular IDs that are difficult for them to get. Just saying.
Millions of ballots going out
right now. What you do is you go and vote. You do a solicited ballot, and that's okay, or you go and vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people...
You go and vote. you go and vote
but
like
what I'm
they
saying is, what are you gonna do
used
about
to
the
in
fact
the
that
old.
millions of people?
You either do.
I mean, like, Trump's being rather clear here. He's saying instead of doing a mail-in ballot, just go fucking vote.
Chris, a solicited ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending. They have mailmen with lots of it. Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia. Mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold.
What?
They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country.
There is no.
This is not.
There is no.
This is
I don't
not
think-
going to end well.
I don't think that's
This
substantiated.
is not going
Vice
to
President
end well.
Biden-
5 states
In fact,
have had
go ahead,
mail-in
sir.
ballots for the last decade or more. 5, including 2 Republican states. And you don't have to solicit the ballot. It's sent to you. It's sent to your home. What we're saying is, they're saying is that it has to be a postmark by the time, by Election Day. If it doesn't get in till the 7th, 8th, 9th, it still should be counted. He's just afraid of counting the votes because he knows
You're
the
wrong.
outcome.
You're
of it.
wrong.
No, I want to continue with you
He just said he loves counting the votes. Why would you even say that? Who the fuck loves counting the votes?
on this.
love
Vice
counting the
President Biden, because
He loves counting the votes?
He's so wrong.
What?
in fact, no, excuse me, Vice President Biden, the biggest problem, in fact, over the years with mail-in voting has not been fraud historically. It has been that sizable numbers, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they have not been properly filled out, or there is some other irregularity, or they missed the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court with a Justice Barrett will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned that any court would settle this because here's the deal. When you get a ballot and you fill it out, you're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown out, that's sufficient to be able to count the ballot because someone made a mistake and not dotting the correct I. Who they voted for.
Yeah, so that's a bigger issue, I think, than anything, is like the invalidation of ballots because they're not exactly specific. And I understand why they're specific, but I imagine that mail-in voting makes it like much more difficult for people's votes to be counted because they fuck up, and there's nothing to stop them from fucking up. Because we can ask.
For testify.
When you go in person, it's easier to manage that kind of stuff.
Say who they voted for. Say it's you. That is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me, Chris, when you have 80 million ballots,
Gentlemen, I have a final.
Senate
Honestly, just send everybody a Scantron, okay?
and swamping the system. You know it can't be done. You know it can't. And already there's been
so now
fraud.
Mail service delivers
wait a minute, gentlemen. And the
185
final
million
question
pieces of mail a
is:
day.
in 8 states, we can keep talking. In 8 states, election workers are prohibited currently by law. 8 states from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and flatten them until Election Day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election night who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be weeks.
Could be months.
Until we find out who the new president is. So first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest? And will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you go first.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen.
He's really pushing this narrative that people are faking the numbers. Bro, listen, man. I don't know. Come on. Stop trying to chalk it up to something else.
Urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They were called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair election, I am 100% on board. But if I see...
Yeah, I think loitering around poll places is illegal. I think that's probably why, if that happened, they were told to leave.
Tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell you what,
does that mean,
from a common sense,
does that mean you're
I'll tell you what it means.
My thing is like, let's say that there are tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated. Why is he assuming that all of them are being manipulated against him? Just saying.
It means you have a fraudulent election. You're sending out 80 million ballots. They're not equipped to... These people aren't equipped to handle it, number one. Number two, they cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President
you think
Biden,
that's good?
Vice President Biden, final question.
No, but that is real. Like somebody was charged, the postal worker was charged for that.
For you, will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted, and will you pledge not to declare victory until the election is independently certified?
Yes, and here's the deal. We count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until Election Day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since the end of the Civil War.
That's true and fair. Apparently, Trump just kind of, like, he was like, yeah, but there's fraudulencies in that. Fair. Also, I imagine it's easier to deal with military ballots than it is with, like, you know, everyone's ballots.
In effect. And that's what's going to happen. Why was it not? Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots, that somehow it's a fraudulent process.
It's already been established. Take a look at Carolyn Maloney's race.
I asked you had an opportunity to respond.
Look at Carolyn Maloney.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what happened.
Vice President Biden, go ahead.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal. The fact
I mean, there was a whole issue between Bush and I think Romney where, like, something happened in Florida. Florida is historically dog shit. But I don't think that was mail-in. I think it was just regular voting. So
I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because once the winner is declared, after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted, that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And if it's me, in fact, fine. If it's not me, I'll support the outcome, and I'll be a president not just for the Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans. And this guy,
I want to see an honest ballot count.
Gentlemen, you say that's the end of it? This is the end of this debate?
Honest ballot count.
We're going to leave it there. To be continued as in more debates as we go on.
Holy shit.
President Trump, Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half. I want to thank you both for participating in the first of 3 debates that you have agreed to engage in. We want to thank Case Western Reserve University.
So yeah, that was it. That was the debates, guys. What a fucking shit show. I
want Papa Gut to pee on my face, but just as a friend. There's nothing weird about that. I want him to pee on my face.